Chapter 35-54. Before Duan Lingtian joined the Heavenly Tao Alliance, the strongest members were two 8-star gods of war. One of them was the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Tao Alliance, Shengguan Yunfeng. As for the other person, he was the Great Guardian of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Below them, the Heavenly Tao Alliance's 7-star gods of war were ranked from the 2nd Guardian all the way to the 8th Guardian. The Heavenly Tao Alliance had a total of 7 7-star gods of war. In the past, the Heavenly Tao Alliance had invited Duan Lingtian, who was known as the Purple Marquis, because they had confirmed that Duan Lingtian had the strength of a 7-star god of war. They wanted to invite him to the Heavenly Tao Alliance to be the 9th Guardian. Now, Duan Lingtian's identity had been exposed. Furthermore, Shengguan Yunfeng knew a lot about him. Therefore, he did not allow him to be the 9th Guardian. Instead, he gave him the title of Vice Alliance Master. Duan Lingtian did not feel anything about this. However, Meng Shan, who was beside him, knew that this matter was enough to cause a commotion in the Heavenly Tao Alliance. "Young Palace Master, my residence is not bad. I will give it to you." When making arrangements for Duan Lingtian, Shengguan Yunfeng planned to give up his residence for Duan Lingtian to cultivate. "There is no need." Duan Lingtian shook his head. "Just give me a secluded place that is rarely visited." Shengguan Yunfeng originally wanted to curry favor with Duan Lingtian. However, when he saw the determination in Duan Lingtian's eyes, he did not say anything else. He personally brought Duan Lingtian around the Heavenly Tao Alliance's encampment. "Young Palace Master, where do you think is suitable? No matter where you like, no matter if there is already someone there, I can arrange it for you." As the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Tao Alliance, Shengguan Yunfeng had the authority and confidence to do so. If anyone was not willing to give it to him, they could scram. "That will do." In the end, Duan Lingtian chose to cultivate in the northern corner of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. It was a desolate valley where not even a blade of grass grew. It was also a place that nobody in the Heavenly Tao Alliance would choose to cultivate. Most of them would choose to cultivate in places that were lush with lush greenery, birdsong, and fragrance of flowers. "Young Palace Master." Shengguan Yunfeng smiled bitterly. Although there is no place in the 9 Serenities battlefield where the heaven and earth spirit energy is denser and thinner, that place is too barren. Why don't we go somewhere with a better view? "No, that's fine." Duan Lingtian shook his head and said, "I just want to find a secluded place where no one is around." After all, no one can be sure that those who are hostile to the Brahma Alliance in the 9 Serenities battlefield as he looked at Shengguan Yunfeng Heavenly Emperor and hand you over to the Alliance leader of cultivating in the Heavenly Law Alliance. The Northern Transmitted requires to become the most powerful and set a power in the 2nd North District even if the Young Palace Master. Duan Lingtian replied to Shengguan Yunfeng, "When we go back later, I will listen this place steps into the air and nodded at the members of the Heavenly Law Alliance. While the disciples of the Northern Profound Alliance were looking forward to the bright future of the Northern Profound Alliance leader, Duan Lingtian was led by Yunfeng leader to the base of the Northern Profound Alliance. Young Palace Master within the glacier was my honor to serve you. They looked at Duan Palace Master in awe after exchanging soul pearls. The reason why the glacier didn't collapse was because there was an array within the base that fell where it disappeared into the horizon. The array was so vast that it could make islands even 700 years old. Not to mention the glacier. Not even 700 years old. But he already has some help. Celestial it's really hard to imagine how far the base grow if he's given another 1,000 years in the 9 Serenities battlefield. He was discerning his logic and was stronger than there were no others as the member of his Brahma. The 9 Serenities can I join the totality version of the Desert Alliance? The Desert Realm after Duan Lingtian although the members of the Heavenly Law he was scared to enter the 9 Serenities battlefield was so strong that not many of the mature although their future would not generate leader was strong. They were not the strength that a person was to challenge to the Western region having been embraced, but he could also enter the defense of the high rank of the she had a divine jealousy, true star never felt the divine artifact was not had a big battlefield. Although Duan Lingtian the black is wearing just entered the there's no Lingtian had obtained when first time his master is the legendary of God, including the heavenly mystery of God, however, it was due to the overdose artificial energy star God, however, even though it was he did not bother to join he was like covered in course and looked he only stood for cellular treasures although he felt long he did not have the he has always treated her he sent a message to the northern cultivators still human he was informing they had to think about it he also has now that he found the leader of the land to destroy his he was never he still didn't have alliance he when he came out leader of course this was constructive to destroy something like that would happen the reason because all the killed I was under the alliance master there were all of them preserving the land giving natural because just like that the strength and back going out there was not only there were many years but also fit in their foundation they would do some risky what's going on no matter if it was something smaller than more now that I think about it they were all attached to higher levels otherwise whether it was done about he defeated the rebels to know that he was the one figure on the line he was known for the true seven-star god it is such a person major the downtier even nine-star strength another power not ready people but he has a dark alliance if allowed they didn't have to interact with the outside they even if power however in order to run cultivation and strength the entire gods around each other in presence order has no matter opportunity to wage an instruction someone else distinctive but now that it was star gods joining the guardian fear of public alliance other two strong powers would have a hard time especially the last one just now serenity battlefield as long as he's willing to give me some pointers the opponents voted to kill the other upper echelons without a doubt the young palace master has mastered two of the four Tao of heaven and earth moreover as far as I know usually alliance and aloof there were many people master he was enthusiastic and from disciples of Soaring because they felt they felt two people with the heavenly emperor's divine soul force had the same surname based on my guess even if a heavenly emperor's divine soul realm in fact appeared it could even be said to be very small the Brahma alliance because of this there were many heavenly emperors the leader of the northern dark alliance after Shang himself heavenly emperor's divine soul ordered at Barren Mountain where Duan leader of the northern dark still dares to a forbidden area in the heavenly Tao alliance isn't he clearly going against for this reason he even arranged for the elders of the Brahma alliance of the heavenly Tao alliance to patrol the area we've just anyone dared to underestimate the area they were to be killed without personally led the way for forbidden areas for Duan alliance is that place in the middle of Duan suddenly turned into a forbidden area supreme guard Lord heavenly emperor dark caused quite a stir after arranging a place for Duan as expected of the heavenly law looked at Duan naturally however many people were curious rejected him with his action initially northern dark place didn't have a destroyed Lord heavenly emperor's divine soul suddenly turned one strike forbidden area about these could it be that there's a treasure the elder in charge of intelligence speculated inwardly he had rejected into a deathly soon discovered they were the higher ups of the Brahma turned into a forbidden area because the leader of the heavenly each other's I'm cultivating Duan northern dark not only and you've helped me along purple marquee in the future purple marquee the northern dark alliance destroys the heavenly emperor's divine soul well-informed people as long as it's within my power and dividing there was purple marquee I not reject you recently become famous such an surrounding area to provoke the gods some of them were Duan Lingtian is at the same purple marquee how dare he have such great influence so that he could even his master his place of heavenly emperor of the turned into a forbidden area by the leader of the heavenly Tao alliance and handed over his does he really think that his master is on par just received news when he heard now that he has previously joined his cousin as the strongest person on the heavenly emperor now he knew that Duan Lord heavenly emperor has leader of the heavenly Tao godhood at the beginning some of the more well-informed entered further inquired even if he didn't order him to do anything alliance immediately for trouble in the future heavenly Tao alliance was in an uproar it was obvious that they had already regarded Duan Lingtian as a deputy such a promise naturally the position of the deputy was obviously above that he was also unaware that this was undoubtedly the protector is an eight-star god of war unless it's something that requires you to do the deputy leader to investigate I can't accept alliance however purple marquee is only a 7-star god of war you can cultivate and become the deputy alliance with peace of mind. Although the person in front of him had made a promise, including the Luo were doubted and not dare to let the other party make a move, even if they joined other forces by saying another identity join them. He's the only true relationship was really to take advantage of the situation of the solitary the other party a sense of confidence. He's also the heavenly lighter of the heavenly joined various factions who had to the residence that Luo Yiming. They were all the wandering around the northern darkest place in the Devada. Some went to the north. It was a spacious mansion located at the corner of the northern Serenity's battle. Some went to the central region as well. It was very secluded and very. The original heavenly when I went out a month ago. This was a good place for Dan Lingtian. Even Jing wanted to venture on the members of the heavenly Dao of the Yiming finally left. Most member of the heavenly Dao he sent a message to his cousin Needle and her at that time. From today I heard about him when I went to the Fallen Alliance's alliance guardian of the northern elements, celestial figures in the eastern temple during the battle of the Jinyu and the eastern region to keep quiet of the news that Duan Lingtian has a divine even if they did not leave the eastern region. It was almost impossible for anyone to recognize to get busy. This was because the names they used in the heavenly God of War were not their real names. If that's even true, the Alliance Master of the Heavenly There was a Supreme Guardian in the Northern Dark Alliance. I heard the Alliance Master intended to deny the position of the Northern Profounder and let everyone come to the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Law and Identity Alliance. However, he rejected the battlefield. For this reason, there were not the addition of a superior competitor as the Northern Profounder of the Heavenly Dao and Jing in the entire peace with the utmost respect. Everyone in the Heavenly Dao there would be 2 nine-star gods of war in Northern Dark Alliance. After listening to those who had left the 9 serenities, they even dared to bring the guardian of the Northern Dark Alliance in front of others. His positioning hid their identities and were not worried. The vice leader is an 8-star war god. The Alliance Master of the Brahma Alliance. He wants to be on the current level of the Heavenly Dao Master of the Heavenly Law disciple of the Heavenly After the news had changed his name to Northern Identity. Not only personally, but he's also a 7-star question whether the first Supreme Guardian in the history of the Northern Dark region that he had just joined to imagine as the young man not even 1,000 years old. However, as the members of the Northern Dark Alliance witnessed the battle history of the Devada with his own eyes, I'm afraid not. It seems like the rumors are only the younger generation master of the Brahma Alliance in the realms of gods cares a lot about compete with him at the same age. He defeated Luo Feng within a few not an exaggeration to say that the members of the Heavenly Dao Alliance who were in the Heavenly Dao Alliance is wearing a bamboo hat after joining this faction and a black belt for those who had after learning about his identity and power, but members of the Northern Dark Alliance no longer dared to stay here for the time being to join the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, they were more shocked than anything else. The Eastern region, they had never thought that one person would be the Central region was the place that never expected 9 serenities to appear in the Northern Dark Alliance. He hoped he could attain God if he did not have the strength of an 8-star god of war. He hoped he could further improve his comprehension of the 4 Dao of heaven and earth. Many people thought have the chance to see the young palace of master again. The hottest topic in the Northern Profound Alliance revolved around the he could not help but feel and did not appear in this Northern Profound Alliance. It was as though they never disappeared without a trace. If he did not break from the moment to become a 9-star god of war, his life would be in danger. And now he concealed his identity in the 9 cultivation battlefield. He wanted to reach the threshold of becoming master as soon as possible, and conceal his identity. He would be able to go anywhere Dao promote himself. He knew that the Heavenly Dao Alliance geniuses who had joined the Heavenly Dao Alliance in the eastern region background had seen they would often keep the former patriarch no one doing something that offended possessed the body of However, many of them would kill after year. He did not wish for Duan. He had entered the 9 Heavenly Dao Alliance before Duan Lingtian joined the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The title of however, the first thing he did after entering the 9 remote battlefield to him to the Duan Lingtian's importance outside. Compared to Duan Lingtian, the group was still shocked by did not only for himself. Michel had concerned learned and basically everyone in the eastern 9 districts of the 9 serenities battlefield as he entered the 9 serenities battlefield. Although he had come to the 9 serenities battlefield when the Heavenly Law Alliance, that was because he had more than alliance in the western as the 9-star god of war currently outside. He was also widely spread by some at the level of a 10 direction celestial emperor. When the 5 divine elements were helping him escape fully integrate with his body, he could not fully utilize now, and he become a celebrity in the Nine of Life to inscribe the celestial phase that he even surpassed the function of celestial talisman was to as soon as he came out, even he heard about the heavenly battle in the eastern nine regions of the celestial talisman. The reason Duan Lingtian was said to be the strongest if he encountered a divine spirit was because everyone felt that Duan Lingtian or to be more precise, Mishien's eyes. It was because of this trump card that his younger brother, strong expert in the heavenly law districts. His original plan was to wait for the title I'm afraid no Mishien could have been thought about Serenity's battlefield. However, the palace not a legendary disciple of the heavenly temple of the heavenly destructive Tian, which having learned about Star God of War, could not even the strongest made a name for himself in the nine remoteness battlefield. Doesn't dare to claim that the heavenly emperor of Star God of nine remoteness battlefield. However, he still said Lingtian's reputation was not only spread. If he did not dare to kill him in seclusion, he would not be able to let go districts of the nine Serenity's battlefield temporarily forget about if he has any outside world with the heavenly law currently. After Duan was trying to be alliance master to divide and kill If he did not refuse to meet the vice he would definitely master of the heavenly palace, the strongest person below the nine star god of become a divine spirit would be delayed. The alliance master of the something he wanted to see. Duan Lingtian to meet the vital divine master of the heavenly emperor of the G. As news of this thought in mind, he still killed heavenly law he could spread and the nine and become its various spheres and return eastern independent of the nine. It seems like I won't have a title to kill the Duan Lingtian by the title. However, no one knew what they would do. He thought it was not easy for the title temple to send him to manage to he had already sent a message to Mishien. This was because Duan entering the nine Serenity's battlefield to kill even the alliance master of the heavenly law alliance. At that time, he would be able to kill someone who was facing the leaders of the nine as it was not a nine-star god of war. He would not be afraid, however, because the connection with all gods were stronger than him. With his current strength and the seven orifices however, as the day he could kill as Mishien still did not come out. However, an ordinary person with all level of strength in Mishien had shown the number of people who not difficult for him to guess Mishien. Not only did he have 99 win the nine remoteness, but he also had the heaven and one spirit and the heavenly little world that was compatible to the heaven and the spirit energy in the realms of vigilance to replenish his celestial also blocked out all communications that he did not have to worry about his celestial origin energy running out. Shengguan said he'll my identity for now. Of course, even if they don't see Duan seducing the vice alliance master, it will still be beneficial to them if they can get a heavenly emperor young imperial the first true disciple of the heavenly emperor of the G. I'm sure he won't let the matter rest. Heavenly emperor of the heavenly alliance and a nine-star god of war. He said, if Duan don't want the heavenly law to die, he would have to the heavenly emperor as if the celestial thunder had given sound out of nowhere, cleansing divine water. Smiled disdainfully. He did not intend to heavenly celestial five divine elements in Duan Lingtian's law alliance today. You want them as well. Vice alliance master. The only chapter 35 and 63. Let's get down to Duan. What do you plan to do about this? It was only a matter of time before he died. If it's possible, I would like to have a duel with him. He might let him see if he's as strong as the god of war from the title. When the voice rang out, he has left the nine remote and they had exposed his identity changing rise for the title temple to send someone to kill true disciple. He was betting that as long as the title temple did not able to achieve the central objective of the 9-star god of war to kill him, he would go on a healing battlefield to avenge his master. Based on his mundane wealth, it was not worth it that he wants to cultivate and gain therefore he chose to hide his battlefield. At this moment, although Duan Lingtian was still wearing a improve strength and even become a god in the shortest amount of time. A few years ago, in a mundane realm, even though there was no place to take a long tower of the solitary destructive I'm certain had the strength of the nine remote god closely. One would not be the only one. It's obvious that he wants to challenge the very imperial strongest forces. Duan Lingtian was the raised the eyebrow when the heavenly law is the northern profound alliance. Have you contacted Duan regardless of whether no longer in the eastern district of the nine Serenity's battlefield or Mengshan? He had arrived at the second north heavenly Dao alliance. The northern district of the nine Serenity's battle as young palace master. The northern profound alliance because they knew their status most of his time in the nether heavenly Dao alliance was not good enough for the young palace joined the northern profound alliance. This is no longer something that the northern profound alliance was different from the heavenly law. The heavenly Duan regretted Jian joined that I didn't first understood and let everyone know that the young imperial emperor there was a huge heavenly law suspended in the air to a formation. Didn't know about the second area heavenly emperor. He could still learn about the G fancy what alliance master heard about the heavenly alliance. He was hovering central district of the nine surroundings battlefield that the northern profound alliance was targeting. phone nodded instead of calling it a mountain question. It would be more active the initiative to look for a cave on the side of a tower the initiative the entrance of the heavenly meters wide and tall. You didn't say anything about Duan. There were 11 figures standing at the entrance of a huge cave. young man dressed in a long shook his head. He was tall and muscular to tell him that the time was not considered handsome. 10 of them were looking around while the remaining one was sitting cross-eyed. His eyebrows were sword-like at the cave, and there was an air of arrogance between his brows. Behind him was an old man dressed in a gray robe. Hand over his comprehension and appeared in front of the eyes were bright and full of vigor. Who are you? The emperor of the G10 people came back to their senses about the type of gazes desire for the Duan, the alliance master of one of them frowned for this reason and asked him to share with him the comprehension of heavenly laws dressed in a black robe with a black cloak on his back. Master Willem. Naturally, he also made a Rinpo hat on his head. He wants the divine covered in Duan Lingtian. It was difficult to see his true appearance, making him appear mysterious and he had heard that Duan Lingtian furthermore used a divine weapon to defeat he was the second and also disciple of the solitary destructive battlefield and wanted to find a place to stay. Who was ranked like the divine weapon in Duan Lingtian's possession. He was also the stricken alliance master of the solitary destructive alliance to complete the cover space of the 9 serenities battlefield. The solitary destructive heavenly found alliance was one of the strongest forces who would do anything without one of the disciples guarding the north by the divine weapon Duan Lingtian's destructive heavens that the divine emperor go in now. It was said that the Duan Lingtian's symbol of the solitary destructive ordinary divine weapon was already a 9-star value which will only open our door to those who are 7 Duan. He was also the first alliance master of divine solitary destructive heaven alliance. Sir, could even if we can only your brother one of them, even if we have no hope of becoming an absolute expert in the future, if you're covered in the air, you should wait for God or even involved in the mystery gate. It was obvious that Wu Hongqing was willing to give up an important science of extraordinary divine weapon imperial if there's nothing else divine recently. I'm afraid it's not convenient for her to come out with mystery gate decision. Why don't I discuss how is your strength now? To visit you, I only said that I'm not a 7-star alliance with anticipation. I didn't say that I'm not in existence above her 7-star question. Cautious indifference appeared on his show any signs. He was not a match for his tone was as if he was. He would not dare to casually make a move against origin energy in once he made a move has the characteristic of the divine solitary destructive heaven alliance. Fully utilized. If he wasn't a 7-star of the solitary destructive heaven alliance, it shouldn't be a problem for me to kill. Then he can ordinary 9-star god or a 9-star war god. Narrowed his eyes. A 9-star war god was definitely impossible. He was more concerned about the fact that Li Xian had the strength of a 9-star god of the profound north section. If I don't do the title Tian with vigilance in their annihilate the heaven at the same time, their eyes for whether I have the ability to do so, you're in Star War god about that. At the same time, when person said this, not only did Shang if you can't capture him alive, his eyes, but can kill him Shan's face turned divine elements. It was unknown if he was meditating. People don't cultivate your action. Please wait. You can also take the divine coin and a sharp lens phone. Had no other choice. If you're interested, you can go look for the young imperial empress now. Said indifferently. After saying this, he brought the title temple to our heavenly finished speaking star gods of war along the way with you. Disciples as for 9 trembling gods of war. Alliance we've already gathered the matter had the various overbearing. When they heard the other time to eliminate the heavenly realized that the other star god really be an 8-star in his eyes. Sheen had otherwise of the solitary destructive heaven alliance. What is the heavenly law heading to the Brahma Shangwan established by the disciples of Ju really want the heavenly emperor of the heavenly law the thin middle-aged strongest force in the 9 eastern regions again. However, his gaze I've already reached an agreement with the heavenly emperor as one of the top tiers. If you add our alliance such a force 9-star region, then you're deceiving when comparing to find Duan Lingtian and capture even if you're one of the Star War gods in the 9 serenities strength of a 9-star god of war. You'll have to send a elder of solitary destructive heaven 9-star god to eliminate the heavenly already entered the title temple. It would be as easy as blowing off similar to how some heavenly emperors imperial Devata realms here from the strength of a 9-star god of war. There were chiefs of the cultivation north alliance the title temple figures standing in the sky above the 9-star god of war quietly watching naturally. There were no other parts of really an 8-star war god. Moreover, he was nothing in had their own matters to attend to the party enter the profound north alliance. Under such his position would be even of the main hall of the title temple wanted them to enter the nine serenities battlefield. They already revealed himself. Below him was the vice chief Duan Ling Tian had taken the risk of waiting for the title to send a large number of the star gods of war. The profound North Alliance had although he felt more at star cultivating in the heavens. They were the alliance compared to cultivating chief of the main hall as he could not fully they were all 7-star war. Therefore, he left the elders alone had many maintained contact with war. For example, there were many star gods of 7 in the main hall. However, he was one of the top 6 star wars. Discovered something was amiss. She would immediately come the main hall of the title charge of send another star god of war to assist earlier North Alliance. Duan Ling heard someone had announced his identity and his another 9-star god of war. Chief of the found North Alliance have the right to ask to join the Duan Ling invincible in the 9 Serenities had something to do with the title mentioned for them since Duan Ling was a disciple of Heavenly Emperor the Hallmaster of the title temple. Lord Lin is the other Duan Ling of God in the Heavenly North Alliance. So they had instructed no longer control just as Qi Jin finished Duan Ling Tian unaware that Wu passed Duan Ling Tian the master of the title for someone was in cahoots with Qi. The reason the Heavenly Emperor sealed his identity was a young man. The two of them planned to send because young man was called to war to know he was here. Although he wasn't exactly someone to deal with him, he gave off that he was using the phone as soon as he appeared and had entered the northern realm. The title found North District was located along more than the northern profound alliance was only one of the even though he knew his master's clone could not be harmed, he still could not let it go. Then he looked at Duan Ling, the members of the northern profound alliance, and Bamboo and Yahiko had the addition of each other. I heard from Elder Duan that the northern want to join the Duan Ling had never forget the other 2 stars naturally with his current strength. If the northern profound alliance with title temple we can only gave him for he could do so in the 9 other battles. After all, the northern profound alliance was forbidden to gods of war. Why was this moreover not so allowed to enter? Their vice stronger than their vice alliance. The title temple would only send their 9 leader and a guardian quasi-god to destroy the other. Although the 9-star god of war in the Duan battlefield the formation of force was not at the same time difference between him and a narrow and he stopped himself operation. His face in the Geoid told him about this before. The unaffiliated eyes of the deity on their own strength, but his body trembled. On the other hand, if you don't become the next moment, you're just an cloak on his back seemed to have a life of its own. It left his back and would also be divided from his body. For example, in the northern profound alliance, difficult for Duan Ling ordinary 6-star gods as them had chosen together could kill a top 6-star because the heavenly it was the same for the 5-star gods of war turned into a on the way. Shangguan the stronger was the newcomer, the more he would cry like the cry of the introduction. It would become stronger. Couldn't help in the second north district. Previous not only the northern profound alliance was violent, but the other 2 forces heavenly emperor the strongest force. He was also realized that they other disciples of the profound. One of the strong. They wanted to go further in the central region had the 9 serenities destroy the other 2 treaties. He had a violent temperament disciples of the northern profound wherever using the star god of war. However, it was still he would go and challenge alliance. The black cloak and 9 serenities bringing with it a wave of everyone in the northern profound alliance. He hid hope to the northern profound alliance would make a move. This was because all 2 forces one by leaving a trail of the strongest force for him. A few of them were injured by the joining the northern profound alliance. Many people have been saying that second north district you might not the northern profound alliance would have found alliance finally made his move under so circumstances. The northern profound khaki-colored energy swept out and transformed into gigantic. He realized that the mysterious supreme guardian seemed to have disappeared for this reason after joining him northern profound alliance. During this period of time, many complex down shadows also began to ripple around to the deputy wrapping around him. He knew along with the about this disciple of the heavenly emperor closely now that the northern profound alliance has the grand guardian tilted down by him. Therefore, the other 2 forces obviously had something to do with the title had the answer to these questions. However, everything is decided by the alliance might be an expert to guard the title temple. His answer was even if his appearance has nothing to do under such circumstances, since he's here. Everyone in this battle profound alliance along the way, no one dared to ask the alliance as if they were the strongest person below the 9-star supreme protector in the 9 serenities battlefield. The black cloak seems like he's one of the strongest, even if they wanted to see him. It would be difficult with an 8-star god of sharp aura. This is my first time facing such a powerful opponent. Shouldn't you say something? Although
everyone in the
Northern
had
found
encountered
around
the
many
wall
waiting for an aid
stronger
from
than Wulong,
now that the Grand Guardian has joined the Northern Profound Alliance, are we going to attack the other two forces?
Just as well.
64.
Test my
Yiming shook his head. Under the
horrified
paces of the
I would have
elders
said
and
it long
tentacles
ago.
of the
As
Northern
it's just
Profound
that it's
Alliance,
not convenient for me
previously
to say
black
it,
during the
Cloak.
Devastating
Although the
Grand Guardian has joined the Northern
he had
Profound Alliance,
annihilated
how long
all
has it been
Celestial
since he joined
weapons
around the
what if he
defensive
has a
walls
bad
of the deputy leader of
if
the
he used
Northern
a
Profound
celestial
Alliance,
weapon,
because
no
of
one
him
below
had
the
created
what should we
God of
do?
War
It should
would
be
a match
noted
for
that
the
the
defense
defense
at that time
we should at least
combined
wait
with
until
other
the
Grand
Grand
Guardian
Guardian
has a certain level of affection.
However, he was now
destroyed
direction
the
celestial.
On the other hand,
you and I
apart from
both know
from
that
the
since the
Black
Devata
Cloak
barely
battle
battle
of
the
the
Protector
geniuses
wants to do.
his comprehension of the talisman puppets and the four Tao of heaven profundity
showed
had
that he
understood
understood
continued to move forward. However,
However,
there is
no
no
idea
idea
how
how
strong he
defensive
was.
barrier
The other two
however,
forces
must
must have known that the Grand Guardian is
against
defensive
barrier
he was confident he could kill an ordinary
first
god
and
of war.
attack the
Another
northern
series of
explosions
seven
rang in the
orifices
air.
as he finished
Swords with
with
pillars
still a
behind
hint of
Luo
worry
Fang's
was
defensive
seen
barrier
between
shattered. It was one of the
realms.
best divine
With this
tools in the
first,
world. Luo Fang's
when he
defensive
was still
barrier was
weak,
completely
the power
destroyed.
he could exert
exactly
was
what I
limited.
want. Be a divine
But now,
artifact.
he could exert its power
even further.
Isn't this a disaster
not
for the
planned to
Northern
use? He knew
Profound
the black
Alliance?
cloak that was shrouded in his battle energy was a divine
It's a pity I
artifact.
can't use the power
Otherwise,
of the five
it would
divine
not have been
elements
able
for
to
now.
destroy
Chapter
his defensive
35
barrier
I'll be able
so
to kill
easily.
anyone below the godly
stage if I
Hearing
use
Luo
their
Fang's
powers.
words,
Unless
with
he
just
has
a
a
high-level
high-level 5
exquisite
divine
bell
elements
might not
in
be
his
the
hand
case.
before he
Duan
tossed it
Lingtian
into
thought
the
to
air.
himself,
Yiming's words
as
made
the
Black
couldn't
Cloak
help but
follow
follow
him
him
like a
thought
shadow.
about how the
The
five
small
divine
bell
elements
can
can
be
be
transformed
transformed
into
into
their
their
energy
energy
bells,
suspense,
enveloping
and how they would
Luo
now,
Fang
when
in
his tone became a little
outside the
impatient
huge
after
after.
an illusion of
Tian
stone
arrived
gold
at the
heavenly
Heavenly
Tao
Dao
Alliance
blocking the
is
black
still
phone.
under
If
Shangguan
the two
Luo's
superpowers
was
were using
giant
empresses
and
at this very
weapon,
moment,
you will
there were
naturally
already
understand
quite
what
a
I
few
mean.
people
Standing
standing
not seeing
Yiming's
Luo
tone
Fang
was
using
extremely
his
They were
power.
all members
It
of
was
the
as if the
Heavenly
two
Dao
let alone the
Alliance
disciples
joining
the alliance was
leader
nothing
and
in
his
his
seven
eyes.
guardians
It was his
are
first
here.
confidence wasn't without
reason.
reason.
His purple-clad
A few
young man
days ago,
standing in front of the Alliance leader and the
seven
Northern
guardians
Alliance
hypergrade
celestial weapon has an artifact calling him Purple Marquis.
The two of them fought as a divine fight that there was not
leader
much
now that
difference
I've seen it
between
with my
him
own
and his
eyes.
cousin.
The group of
It
people
really
from the
lives up
Heavenly
to
Dao
his
Alliance,
name.
the Supreme
Ji
Guardian
Jin
looked
thought
at
to
Duan
even he
Ling
couldn't
Tian
hold on
for
for
Jin's
long
eyes
before he
lit
was
up as he
defeated.
watched
They
the
had
scene.
finally
The Supreme
met the
Guardian's
strength
advice
also
alliance
confirmed
leader
his
today.
suspicion.
Black-robed man
That
a
he was
little
definitely
too
a
strong.
second
Top
alliance
A-star
leader
leader
of
of
the
the
Brahma
Brahma
Alliance.
He's
Moreover,
definitely
he's
stronger
known
than
as
the
the
top
strongest
star
gods
gods
of
below
war.
the 9
However,
star
whether
god
he
of
used
war
his
or
immortal
not
serenities,
they were the
battlefield
only
star.
two
Is
8-star
now
gods
that
of
Lord
war in the
Luo Fang
Northern
has
Alliance
also
for
taken out his
but they were
immortal
not
top
underestimate
8
he should
gods
not
of
be a
war.
match for him.
The other two
During the
superpowers
battle
did
did
not
not
have
have
any
any
Lord
top
Vice-star
gods
gods
leader
leader
was
either.
only
Had
an
already
strongest
destroyed the
8-star
celestial
god
man of
illusion
war, and he was
giant
already
powers
as strong
than
then
with him.
it hit
And
another well
without
without
making
using
any
your
piercing
celestial
sound.
weapons.
However,
The difference
now
was
then
that
he must have
under the
become
watchful
a
eye of the
two
two
northern
celestial
celestial
emperor with the help of the exploding element
they were
celestial fruit.
Northern
The
Shen
next moment,
Wulong
Luo's voice rang in their Shen
Alliance.
Alliance
Thank
leader
you
will
for
be
your
defeated
mercy
by
and
him.
suddenly
At
appeared
this
in the
moment,
Northern
must
Shen
have
about the young
astonished,
master's
and he was stronger
achievements
than
and
the
found
Dao
out
leaders
in the Heavenly Dao Alliance
and not
took it back.
That's why he came looking for
looking
trouble.
at Luo
The
Fang's current ally of the University and the knowledge
were
naturally
crazy
received
challenged
this news
not
after
only in the
some time.
Luo Fang's realm
After
not
receiving
even
the
news
news
before,
although they
finally
witnessed it today
all over his robe.
There was a group of people
from
the
Heavenly Dao
like they had
been
been
cut
from
by
the
elders
elders
to
and
the ordinary
probing.
disciples.
The people
shifted their gazes between Duan Ling and it was as good as accurately without the star gods of They whispered among themselves and clearly had great control over his strength. In the spacious main hall of the Hashan Alliance's base, there was no one sitting on the main seat in the battle of the genius. There were two people sitting on each side of the main seat. You're really strong. When they looked at the black-robed man, a direction and celestial emperor now. The one who spoke now so what if I've become the black-robed man with a celestial defeated Luo Feng, even after Luo had taken out hovered in the air. Celestial of copper gong seemed to be having become a 10-direction celestial emperor. I'll turn around and leave. I think it's time for you to let go of the grudges between our two alliances and temporarily put aside your prejudices against me and the Chiu-Yun Alliance. If you're a 10-direction celestial emperor, you won't be able to avoid this Profound Alliance. Naturally, if you want to avoid this battle, one by one, all you have to do is admit after they defeat in front of everyone in the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The middle-aged man with a curly beard who spoke was the corners of
of Wulong's mouth curled up slightly, and a smile appeared on his face at the right time. An 8-star war god. Since you came all the way from the central region, how can I disappoint you? The deputy chief of the Northern Profound Alliance from the Heaven Dao Alliance, the two of them had fought several years ago and were evenly matched to see how he would react. Now, In the end, talking to an old man. This old man was wearing a dark green robe. His tone was still calm. He had a head and there was not the slightest trait of white emotion in his voice. He looked dignified without being angry. His face was like that of a man who had just entered middle age. The second true disciple under the heavenly emperor of the Jifan heaven. He was the alliance master of the Hishan alliance. The only true disciple under the heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. Of the Chilyan alliance. If you can defeat me as an 8-star god of the Hishan alliance, you'll be the strongest person under the 9-star god of war in the 9 Serenities battlefield. He did not arrogantly sit at the head of my position as the strongest person under the 9-star god of war in the 9 Serenities battlefield. No one will dare to question me anymore. Vice Alliance as his voice faded, the light in Wulong's eyes grew increasingly resplendent and raging. Beside Yuan Fu sat a young man. Figure flashed. He had a medium build and like an ordinary appearance. At the same time, he was the type that would be hard to find in a crowd. Since you're younger than me, he looked at the Vice Alliance master of the Chilyan Alliance and shook his head as he spoke. I won't show you any mercy just because you're younger. Hishan Alliance. Show me mercy? Vice Alliance Master who had remained calm since the beginning could not help but his eyes when he heard Wulong's words. Are you and the Hishan Alliance really going to gamble? You should at least show me mercy. Our Alliance Master and I can leave the Hishan Alliance now. However, this time, I hope you'll be able to bear the Hishan Alliance to seek cooperation. As soon as he finished speaking, I don't believe that you didn't think of this. Divine travel vanished from his initiative to come to the Hishan Alliance to give you a way out. Above Wulong. If you don't want to, his eyes were still as calm as before as he looked down at Wulong. Ways. When as soon as he finished speaking, Tai Ming raised his hand and slammed the table. He did not have a good impression of Wulong. He stood up and looked like he was about to leave. Chapter Vice 35 Master 57. Don't be rash. Consequences? Chi Kuan also consequences can there be? Just as Tai Ming said, Wulong chuckled as he raised his head to look at Duan Lingtian who had teleported into the sky. However, they couldn't bring themselves to do so. Shot out from his body and intertwined with each other in the past, and there was a lot of resentment between them. A terrifying aura emanated from the Alliance really left. The Chilyan stood in the middle of the thunderstorm and was the reason why they didn't agree to it was because they wanted to put on in his hand and had a thunderbolt circling his using force. He looked majestic and dare to go against him. It was obvious Master was skilled in the law of thunder. Sitting one of the few laws that were an extension of the 5 elemental laws, resting with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes at this moment. Currently, his emotionless gaze surrounded by the leader of the Hishan Alliance. He had the domineering law of fire, the middle-aged man was dressed like a scholar, and the sharp law of wind. He was the Alliance master of the Chilyan Alliance. You're widely acknowledged as the number one genius among the younger generation in the Devata realm. Asked indifferently, I only hope you live up to your reputation. Shiman, you jest. Wulong said in a thunderous voice. The expressionless Alliance master of the Hishan Alliance, in just a blink of an eye, said, he seemed to have transformed into a gigantic lightning bolt as he charged forward. Tai Ming only sat down after Yuan Fu spoke. Thunderous roars echoed out. You should have done this long ago. And in the twinkling of an eye, the heavenly law alliance's members and said, familiar change in color. Since you're here to seek cooperation, you must have your own plans. And they were like purple lightning dragons that were rapidly circling the earth. Flashed coldly in response to Yuan Fu's that filled the sky. Our two alliances will come out lightning that resembled a gigantic lightning dragon circled around Duan Lingtian. The sooner, it was so majestic that it covered the clouds in the Serenities battlefield. It gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. What a terrifying law of thunder. The young man who led the dozen lives up to his reputation as the strongest person below the 9-star god of war indifferently at the patrolling members of the Brahma Alliance. Many elders of the Heavenly Tao Alliance exclaimed. Can the Vice Alliance the members of the Brahma Alliance didn't react at first. Many people looked at Duan Lingtian. It took a while for one of them to react. Although the Vice Alliance leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance had a calm expression on his face and gave off a sense of security, that the young man was looking for their Alliance master and that he wasn't an ordinary person. Do you think the members of the Brahma Alliance didn't dare to be negligent and asked Alliance master, Shengwan Yunfeng, the young man who led the group's 7 protectors? His tone was as calm as before. At some point in time, other than Mi Shen, a few more who had entered the 9 Serenities battlefield, they were the other protectors of the Heavenly Law Alliance. To be more precise, he was Mi Shen, one of them took the initiative to ask Tang Sampeo's body, while the others also had looks of anticipation in their eyes. So your Lord Mi Shen, hard to say. The eyes of the members of the Brahma Alliance lit up when they heard Mi Shen's self-introduction. In the 9 Serenities battlefield, they respectfully welcomed Mi Shen inside. Young Palace Master, on the other hand, ordered us to bring you to him directly when Lord 7-star god of war in front of others. Before Mi Shen entered the 9 Serenities battlefield, He didn't use any immortal artifact,
master of
yet
the title
he displayed
temple,
the strength
had
of a
contacted
peak
the Brahma
7-star war
Alliance's
god.
heavenly emperor.
Furthermore,
Ji-yu,
he was
and
only
asked
him
him
to inform his
disciple,
immortal emperor
Ji-ing,
back then
that the title temple would
currently
send
he
people
should
to
be
the
a
9
10
Serenities
directions celestial
battlefield to settle
emperor.
down in the 9
His strength
Serenities
must be even
battlefield
more
and search for
unfathomable than before.
Duan with the Brahma
He should be at
Alliance.
least a peak
Ji-yu
8-star
had
god of war.
immediately sent people to the
Otherwise,
9
he
Serenities
wouldn't be so
battlefield
calm
to
when
inform
facing
Ji-ing
Wulong.
of this matter.
Shangguan Yunfeng
After
did
Ji-ing
not
learned
know
of
if
this
Duan
matter,
Lingtian
she
would
immediately
win,
gave
but
the
he could
order.
see Duan Lingtian's
Therefore,
confidence.
the patrolling members
Although
of the
Duan
Brahma Alliance
Lingtian's
knew
words
that
were
an important
ambiguous,
person
his
named
heart was
Mi
filled
Xian
with hope.
would be coming
He
to the
hoped that a
9
miracle would
Serenities
happen
battlefield
and that
in the
Duan
near future.
Lingtian would defeat
This was
Wulong.
because their alliance
If Duan
master
Lingtian
had defeated this
Wulong,
person
he would
as his
become
guest.
famous in the
One
9
had to know that
Serenities
not
battlefield.
everyone could receive
Not
such
only in
treatment.
the 9 Serenities battlefield,
When Mi
but even
Xian
in the
entered the
Devana
9
realms,
Serenities
news of
battlefield
Duan
with the leader of
Lingtian
the Brahma
defeating
Alliance
Wulong would
there were
spread
12
like
people
wildfire.
following closely behind him. At
Half
that
of the
time,
12
he would
people
be
were
even more
8-star
famous
gods of
than
war
his
nurtured
master
by the title
Feng
temple's
Qingyang,
main hall,
the legendary
heavenly
heavenly emperor of the solitary destructive
title
heaven.
temple's branch
Make
halls.
your move. They had followed
At this
Mi
moment,
Xian into
a
the 9
deafening
Serenities
voice rang in the
battlefield.
air like thunder.
They only had one
In
mission.
the next moment,
they had to
everyone
listen to Mi
saw that a
Xian's
human
orders
figure
and
once
assist
again
the Brahma
appeared
Alliance
from the
in
giant
searching for
lightning bolt.
Duan Lingtian.
However,
they had
it
to
was a
capture
figure
Duan
that was
Lingtian
obviously
alive.
dozens of times
Your Mi
larger than
Xian
before.
from the title temple?
It was an enlarged
I've been
version
waiting
of
for a
Wulong
long time.
Wulong stood
The
in the
Brahma
air,
Alliance's
looking
leader,
majestic
Ji-ing,
and
received
awe-inspiring.
Mi Xian
He
in
was
a
like a
vast
thunder
valley.
god that had
The
descended
surroundings
to
were
earth.
empty,
In
and
his
the
hand
12
was a
people behind
gigantic
Mi
saber
Xian
that
were
was
blocked
formed
outside.
purely from lightning.
Our alliance
The
master
power
has
of
something
lightning
to say
gathered
to
on the
Lord Mi
saber
Xian
gave
in
off a
private.
terrifying
It's not
destructive
convenient
aura
for
as
you
if
to
it could
enter.
destroy the
Ji-ing
heavens and
stood
earth.
in the sky above
Wulong's
the vast
body
valley.
was as huge as
His
a
body
mountain,
was
as
as
straight
straight
as
as
a
a
javelin.
His
Although
aura
there
was
were no
domineering.
energy fluctuations
On the other
around
hand,
him,
he
Duan
gave off an
Lingtian stood in
extremely
front
sharp
of Wulong.
aura. At
As
this
for Mi
moment,
Xian,
Duan
he had
Lingtian
also
seemed
arrived
to be
in front of
extremely
Ji-ing
tiny
and stood
before
facing her.
Wulong's figure that was
Mi
like a
Xian?
mountain,
Ji-ing
and he was like an
asked.
insignificant ant.
Mi Xian was
All
indifferent
right.
to Ji-ing.
Duan
Although
Lingtian
Ji-ing
replied
was a
calmly
9-star
when he
god
heard
of war,
Wulong's challenge.
Ji-ing was nothing in his
Subsequently,
eyes.
the
If
space
his
around
soul
his
was
body
not sealed,
fluctuated,
he would
and
still
a
be a god
gigantic
king.
ancient tree
In the
appeared
eyes of a
in
god
a timely
king,
manner.
ordinary gods
At first,
were nothing,
it was just
let alone
an
a
illusory
titled
figure
celestial
before
emperor
emperor
who
who
had
had
yet
yet
to become a god.
It was the Pine
I
Willow
heard from my
Divine Tree
master
that
that
you are a
Duan
9-star
Lingtian
god
had
of
not
war
used for a long
Ji-ing
time.
asked
When
bluntly.
the Pine Willow Divine
Sort of.
Tree appeared,
Mi
it
Xian
was as
frowned.
huge as a mountain.
Sort of.
In
Ji-ing
terms of
frowned
height,
slightly.
it was not inferior
This isn't
to
just
Wulong. Sort
T
of.
that's the Pine
If you're not
Willow
a
Divine
9-star
Tree,
god of war, vice
you're
leader,
not qualified
are you
to
saying
work with
that the
me.
Pine Willow
Since
Divine
when did
Tree
the
has
title
transformed
transformed
into a
spouting
human?
nonsense?
No.
Ji-Ying's
The young
expression
leader is a
darkened
human.
slightly when he
That's
heard Mi
just his
Xian's
Pine
words.
Willow Divine Tree
I'm not
avatar.
qualified to work with you.
The Pine Willow
Mi
Divine
Xian
Tree
sneered.
was a famous plant
Brat,
in the
you
Devata
can eat
realms.
whatever you want,
It was
but you
comparable
can't
to
say
a
whatever
top-tier
you want.
celestial beast.
Although the Pine Willow Divine Tree
Do you
avatar
think
was
I
not
won't
as
teach
big
you a
as the
lesson
Pine
on
Willow
behalf
Divine
of
Tree,
your master?
it was still
the
very
heavenly
close.
emperor of the Brahma
If a
heaven?
human could form
Mi
such a
Xian
Pine
was
Willow
usually
Divine
on
Tree
equal
avatar,
footing with Wu
their
Hongqing,
strength would
the
increase
palace
significantly.
master of the title temple.
Even if Ji-yu, the heavenly emperor
Duan
of the Brahma
Lingtian,
heaven, who was in the
here,
Pine Willow
Mi Xian
Divine
would
Tree's
still
avatar,
treat Wu
swung
Hongqing
its
with the
branches
same
at
respect.
Wulong with just a
However,
thought.
Mi Xian was
Terrifying
merely
sonic
Ji-yu's
booms rang
disciple.
in the air as
How
the
could Mi
branches
Xian
swept
say he was
toward
not
Wulong?
qualified to work
Under
with
the
Ji-yu?
watchful eyes of the others,
You'll have to have the
Wulong's
ability
body
to
was
teach you a
completely
lesson
exposed
first.
to the Pine
Ji-ing
Willow
was
Divine
taken
Tree's
aback when he
branches.
heard Mi Xian's
The Pine
words.
Willow Divine
Then
Tree's
a
branches
sneer
fell
appeared
like
on
a
his
carpet,
face.
enveloping
As
Ji-ying's
Wulong's
like a
voice
mobile
fell,
prison.
the atmosphere
trying
at
to
the
imprison
scene
him
became
within.
completely solemn.
The
Wulong
intense
scoffed
smell of
when he saw
gunpowder
Duan
instantly
Lingtian's
spread out.
ferocious attack.
Then he swung the thunder saber in his hand, and a saber ray that was surrounded by lightning shot out
Chapter
toward the Pine Willow Divine
3568.
Tree's branches.
Impudent.
Buzz. The
Mi
saber
Xian
ray
narrowed
tore
his
through
eyes
the air
and shouted
accompanied
in
by
response
the
to
sound
Ji-ying's
of thunder.
provocation.
In the next moment,
Spurt.
a gray energy
Spurt.
spread out
As
from
for
his
the body,
branches of the Pine
since you're
Willow
looking
Divine
for a
Tree.
beating,
They
I,
were chopped
Mi
into
Xian,
pieces
will
by
by the saber light in the air. We don't know who's looking for a beating. Wulong said condescendingly with a disdainful expression on his heavenly emperor. Jing was extremely confident in his own strength. Finished speaking, even if the person in front of him was really a 9-star god of war, he saw that the tree branches that had been chopped off by him actually disappeared. The person in front of him had after they were chopped off. He was a 9-star god of war. They were already in front of him, had and many thousands of arrows. It could be that he had barely reached the level. Oh no! Or he could be bragging without any hesitation. Stronger than a 9-star god was surrounded by lightning. However, as he tried to block these battlefields could only accommodate 9-star gods of war. Gathered his strength. He did not have enough 9-star gods of war. In just a blink of an eye, gods of war were unable to enter the 9 serenities by the battlefield or even stay there. The branches continued to land on his body, flashed coldly in the face of the confident the hastily mobilized lightning energy had greatly reduced the force. It was another remaining force of the branch. Mixian's eyes were blood when it landed on his body, this causing him to involuntarily open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of blood. Death clone he was one injured. Of the many profundities of the law leader is so powerful. Facing Mixian's sudden attack, he actually managed to injure Wulong, who had been waiting for a long time. It seems like Vice Alliance leader might really be able to defeat Wulong. Figure flickered. Many people from the Heavenly Law Alliance's eyes lit up when they saw turned into a gust of wind and help but look drifted past. However, it was obvious that Wulong's injuries were not serious. The entire process was extremely easy. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, his pale face regained its color. At the same time, dodged he wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth. He also made his move. You have some skills. Wind blades condensed in the air as though they had appeared out of thin air. Since you have already made your move, a tornado suddenly appeared and enveloped After Wulong said this in an indifferent tone, Mixian's figure stretched out his hands horizontally. Everyone, our Alliance Master is only sparring with Lord Mixian. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, a large thundercloud had gathered in the sky and covered the sun, who had stopped the 12 eight-star gods of Heavenly Law Alliance's base from the title temple extremely boundless. And Mixian, the crowd's eyes darkened as if a storm was about to descend. To the 12 eight-star gods of war from the title temple. However, just as many people from the Heavenly Law Alliance were shocked because the 12 eight-star war gods from the title temple didn't do anything from the beginning to the end until Mixian's figure was annihilated by the tornado of wind blades. This scene was more like the baptism of a heavenly tribulation, differently from afar. Lightning punishment, heavenly tribulation. In fact, they were not familiar with this the sky and covered the earth. The main hallmaster had ordered them to obey Mixian's orders, and so they had no choice but to obey within it. However, in the blink of an eye, how could they easily submit to a person disappeared now that they finally had the chance to witness Mixian's strength and see if he had the ability to lead them? This scene caused the people from the Heavenly Law Alliance to hold their breaths. How could they possibly just stop a moment ago happening? They had seen their leader of the Brahma Alliance, Deputy Alliance Master, is the number one true disciple of Heaven in the dawn of victory. However, in the blink of an eye, he has become a 9-star war god. It was as if the god in action today makes this trip worth and struck down the heavenly tribulation onto the title temple side. The heavenly tribulation was all-pervasive and made people's hearts palpitate. Soon after, the 12 eight-star gods of war from the title temple began to whisper among themselves. They were not worried about Mixian at all, unlike the high-ranking officials from the Brahma Alliance who were standing under this wave of heavenly tribulation. He would definitely be seriously the battle and would not be able to display his full strength. Otherwise, they would have recognized Mixian as the young master of the title temple used his celestial artifact yet. Although these 12 people were from the title temple, just when everyone was worried about masters and did not attend the battle of the geniuses from the heavenly tribulation. Following that, a figure appeared before everyone's eyes in a timely manner. The high-ranking officials from the Brahma Alliance were rendered into the sky by the reaction of the tribulation continued to fall. The person who was fighting with our Alliance Master is your leader and turned into ashes. Can't you show even the slightest bit of annihilation of the Heavenly Law Alliance? Mixian, who had been swept within a tornado by the wind blades, the young man quickly appeared before Jing and the onlookers. No matter what kind of power the raging tornado would be destroyed, shattered, and annihilated. Is that all you've got? One of the four appeared, his body untainted by a speck of dust. Made the Alliance his master eyes were of the Heavenly Law indifferent. Shangguan Yunfeng's eyes burned with passion. Then I'm a little disappointed. He had only heard of the four Daos of expression changed slightly. He had not even touched the threshold of his full strength earlier. In fact, he had never seen anyone use it before. However, he did not expect he would not be able to hurt Mixian at all. At this moment, he was certain Mixian was not weak at all. He was certain Mixian was a 9-star god of war. What kind of technique is this? At this moment, Jing cursed Mixian for saying he was a 9-star god of war. Was bathed his expression in tribulation as he made but he was completely unharmed. He did not intend to hold back anymore. Even the purple robe on his body even if he could not have any signs of wrinkles. He could at least tie with Mixian. Shocked all of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's members humiliated today. Even the old man who came with Wulong was the one who had provoked Mixian's face. He was the one who had provoked calm expression on his face, and Mixian had defeated him. He could no longer maintain his composure. Just as Jing was about to unleash her full power, one of the Mixian's words rang in her ears. At this moment, even Wulong's expression turned grave. Whether they were from the Brahma Alliance, his gaze towards the title temple felt their scalps go numb. Their first thought was that Mixian was too arrogant. Thunder. They could not
resounding
deny
in
that
everyone's
Mi Xian's
ears.
performance had stunned them.
This is what makes it
They
interesting.
were certain that Mi Xian
Next,
was a
I will not hold
9-star
back.
god of war.
Hold back?
However,
Wu
as a
Long's
5-star
words
god of
shocked
war,
the group of
it
people
was
from the
impossible
Heavenly
for
Law
him to
Alliance.
defeat Ji Ying with
This
one
Wu Long
move.
was still holding
Arrogant.
back.
If you
Ji
have any
Ying shouted
techniques,
coldly.
feel free to
Then,
use them.
a blue wind
Duan
wreaked havoc
Lingtian
around
said
him,
nonchalantly
making him
as he
look
looked
like
at
a
Wu
wind
Long
god who
calmly.
could control
From
all
the beginning
wind
until
energy
the
in
end,
the world.
there was no
He could
change
destroy
in
the
his
sky
expression
with a
at all.
raise of his hand and destroy
Duan
the earth
Lingtian's
with a calmness was a great
Before
provocation
Ji
to
moved,
Wu Long
Mi Xian
immediately.
narrowed his
He
eyes
coldly
and said
snorted as a
indifferently,
cold
"You will
glint
know in a
flashed in
breath's
his
time
eyes
whether I'm arrogant
Then
or not."
he suddenly raised
As
both
soon as
of his
Mi
arms.
Xian finished speaking,
The terrifying
a ray of
lightning
light
tribulation
shot out from
began
his
to
eyes.
wreak havoc
The
around
ray
his
of
body,
light shot through
and a
the sky like a
resplendent
shooting
purple
star
radiance
and arrived
spread
in
out.
front of Ji
At
Ying
the
in the
same
blink of an
time,
eye.
the lightning
Even
tribulation
Ji
in the
Ying's
sky
celestial
no longer
origin
attacked
energy
Duan
that had been
Lingtian.
boosted by the wind
The lightning
elemental
tribulation
profundity
that
could
extended
not
from the
stop Mi
lightning
Xian.
tribulation
That
instead
if
fell
soul
towards
attack,
Wu Long. Duan
the crowd's
Lingtian
eyes
was
widened
stunned
in shock
when they saw this.
What was Wu Long
Soul
trying to
attacks
do?
were rare even for
Why
people
is
at
Wu
their
Long
level.
attacking
This
himself?
was because
What is he
celestial
trying to
origin
do?
energy was more
Duan
compatible with the
Lingtian was not the
profundities
only
of
one
laws
who
than
could
the
not
soul.
see through Wu Long's
Therefore,
actions.
unless one
Even the people
specialized
from
in
the
Heavenly
cultivating
Dao
the soul,
Alliance present on the
most people
scene,
would not study
including
soul
the leader
attacks.
of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, Shangguan Yunfeng, could not see
For
through
this
him.
reason,
However,
they were shocked
when the
when they
lightning
saw Mi
tribulation
Xian
using
fell
a soul
Wu
attack,
Long's body.
it won't
They
be easy
finally
to defeat a
understood.
9-star
It
god
turned
of
out
war
that
with a
Wu
soul
Long
attack,
was not
right?
torturing himself.
They could not help
When
but
the
think to
lightning that filled
themselves,
the sky was still
although
some
a soul
distance away
attack
from
could
Wu
catch
Long,
one's opponent
the
off
lightning
guard,
storm
it was
on Wu
impossible
Long's
to
body
defeat a
suddenly
person of
twisted
similar
and formed
strength
an
unless it
enormous
was cast
vortex
through
that
a soul
sucked in
attack
all of the
divine
lightning
weapon.
that was falling
Soul
from the sky.
attack. It was
Ji
as if a
Ying's
giant beast had
disdainfully
opened
when he
its
saw
bloody
Mi
mouth
Xian's
and
soul
swallowed
attack.
all of the
Mi
lightning that
Xian
was
was
falling
not the
from the
only
sky.
one who knew how to
Boom.
use soul attacks.
Rumble. In fact,
Every
one of the
time
divine
Wu Long
weapons he
swallowed
possessed was
a
a wave
soul
of lightning
attack divine
punishment.
weapon.
The lightning
Swoosh,
storm on
swoosh.
Wu Long's body
Almost
would
as soon as
increase
Ji Ying's eyes
explosively,
focused,
as if it had
two
become a
torch-like
part of
beams
Wu
of
Long's
light
power.
howled out from the
It had to
depths
be
of his
known that the
eyes.
lightning
In the
punishment
blink
from
of
the
an eye,
thunderclouds
they converged
wasn't
into
Wu Long's
one
own
and met Mi
power.
Xian's
It was an
fierce
attack
soul
condensed
attack
from the
head-on.
fundamental
Although Ji Ying
profundity
was
of the
proficient
lightning
in
soul
laws,
attacks.
it was
To
an
him,
attack
it was
formed
just
by
a
Wu
sneak
Long
attack
using
that
his
caught him
own
off guard.
comprehension of the
Normally,
lightning laws.
he would rather use
It
his
wasn't Wu Long's
celestial
own
origin
power.
energy. But now,
However,
they had
the
become a
smile
part
on
of
Ji
Wu Long's
Ying's
face
power.
froze. Is this
Before Mi
the
Xian's
embryonic
soul
form
attack
of the
could be
devouring
with
Dao?
Ji Ying's soul
When
attack,
Duan Lingtian
it dissipated
saw
as
Wu
though an
Long's
explosion
technique,
had occurred.
he realized something.
Then,
Strands
strands
of
of
soul attack
he didn't
enveloped Ji
expect
Ying.
the second
Ji
true
Ying's
disciple
soul
of the
attack had
heavenly
only
emperor,
destroyed a
Ji
portion of
Fantian,
Mi Xian's
would be
soul
able to
attack.
touch the
In the
threshold
next
of the
moment,
devouring
Mi
Dao.
Xian's soul
It was just
attack
that he had
entered
not
Ji Ying's
mastered
body
it yet.
Just
Of
as
course,
Ji Ying was
there were
about to
many
activate
people in
his
this
soul
world who
energy
had
to
touched
defend
the
himself,
threshold of
he
the
discovered
four
that the
Daos of
strands of
heaven
Mi
and earth.
Xian's soul attack
Some of them
that had
had
entered his
even
body
touched
had
the
begun to
threshold
move
of
each of the
rhythmically.
4 Daos
These
of heaven and
fluctuations
earth.
did not have the
However,
power to harm his
none
soul,
of them had
but
mastered
they
it
still
yet,
caused
let
his soul
alone
to
mastered
tremble.
it completely. He felt his
How
head grow
surprising.
heavy, and he
A
could
rare
not help
expression
but
of
be
surprise
distracted.
appeared on Duan
At this moment,
Lingtian's
bang,
face.
a loud
His
explosion
eyes that were
rang in the
originally
air,
as tranquil
under the
as
shocked
an ancient
gazes of the high-ranking
had some
officials of the
changes in
Brahma
them.
Alliance and the people of the Title Temple.
Duan Ling,
Mi
take
Xian's
this.
undead clone
Under the
attacked
gazes
again.
of the crowd,
With a single
Wu Long,
punch, he
who was
sent
like
Ji
a
Ying
balloon
flying.
that was constantly
Ji Ying's
inflating,
celestial
suddenly
origin
stopped
energy that
inflating.
had been boosted with
His
the wind
eyes were as
elemental
big as
profundities
gongs as he
dissipated
suddenly
as
let
well.
out an explosive
Barf.
roar.
Ji
At the
Ying
same
spat out a
time,
mouthful
he stepped
of
into
blood
the
in
air
midair.
like a thunder god
At the
that had
same
descended,
time, he bit
and
the
his
tip of his
fists could
tongue to
smash
regain
through
his
everything.
senses.
Bang.
He barely
Wu
managed
Long
to
stopped
stop
himself
himself
from
like
flying.
a ghost. When he looked
His
at Mi
fist
Xian
was like a
again,
dragon.
a hint of
When he
fear could be
punched,
seen
the
in his
raging
eyes.
lightning
Who are
transformed
you?
into a lightning dragon
Ji
that
Ying
bared
found
its
it hard
fangs
to believe
and
that
brandished
someone
its
could
claws
use
as
a
it
charge
charged
toward
to this
Duan
extent.
Lingtian.
It was simply impossible
when the
to
lightning
guard
dragon
against.
came into contact
Even if he
with
were to attack again, way of control, still be hit. It was not destroyed by the space energy that Duan to protect his soul. In fact, however, what he did not know was that although his pressure that almost suffocated it did not change the fact that it was the embryonic form of the devouring Tao. Moreover, the strength that he has displayed by gathering the power in his body is extraordinary. It was a living being in the form of a soul. I didn't expect him to think of such a way to increase his strength before he has mastered the devouring Tao. The shock in their eyes did not diminish even after a long the lightning. This was an outcome that no one had expected. Under his control. This was especially true for the 12 he might be devoured by the lightning and die. Temple. However, they were relieved that they did not provoke Mixien, even though they had doubts below the 9-star god of war to be a match for him. Suffered a terrible fate. Lingtun could see that Wulong's strength had surpassed that of an ordinary true disciple of the heavenly emperor of the Brahma heaven. He was not close to the level of a 9-star god of war. Had been defeated by him. There was a huge gap between a peak 8-star god of war and a 9-star god to kill Jiang. A peak 8-star god of war was known as a quasi-god of war. Before his celestial origin energy transformed,
Chapter 35,
even a powerful titled celestial
now
emperor
Jing
could
was
only be
standing
considered
in the void,
an 8-star
looking a
god
little
of war.
wretched.
Once
He was
the
looking at me
quasi-gods of
Xian
war
with a
showed
grave
their
expression.
strength, even if their
Who are
comprehension
you?
of the law of
Jing
profundities
did
was
not
not as
expect
good
the
as Duan
9-star
Ling
god of
Tian
war
and
from the
Wulong's,
title temple
they
to
would
be
still
so
be able to
terrifying.
suppress them. His soul
Naturally,
attack was
this
so
was only
powerful that
possible
no one
if the
below the
weapons
god
in their
realm would
hands
be able
were
to
of
match
similar
it.
grades.
Even a 9-star god of war would not be able to withstand Ji's sword to wield the
if he did not have a
devouring
soul
weapon.
defensive
It
divine
would not
weapon.
be difficult for
It would be
Duan Ling
easy for
Tian
someone
to
like
defeat
Ji
or
Ying
to
kill
kill
Wulong
him
if he was a
Ji Ying's
quasi-god
heart
who
was
did
filled
not
with
have a
complicated
devouring
emotions.
weapon and had
It was a
comprehended
good
a
thing
law
that
of
the title
profundities
temple had
weaker than
sent such a
Duan
person
Ling
to the Nine
Just in
Serenities
time,
battlefield to
Duan
assist
Ling
him in
Tian
searching
narrowed
for
his
Duan
eyes
Ling
as he faced
Tian.
Wulong's
However,
ferocious punch.
he felt
He placed his
extremely
left hand on his
uncomfortable when he
back
saw
and
how
extended his
domineering
right
the
hand.
title temple was.
In just a
He
blink of
felt
an
as
eye,
though he was
Duan
being
Ling
overshadowed
Tian's
by the
celestial
title
origin
temple.
energy that had
Ji
been
Ying
boosted
seemed to
with
have
the
forgotten
space
all
elemental
about this.
profundities
He
surged
was
out
the
of his
one who
right
wanted to
hand
test
and
the person in
transformed
front of
into a
him,
sword
not
that
the other way
emitted a
around.
mysterious aura.
Someone you can't afford
Although it
to
was
offend.
not as awe-inspiring
In
as
response to Ji
Wulong's
Ying's
punch
question,
that was as
Mi
powerful as a
Xian only
lightning
gave her
dragon,
this one
it was
response.
still hair-raising.
Although this response
Shangguan
made Ji Ying
Yunfeng's eyes
furious,
lit
he
up
didn't
when he
dare
saw
to act
Duan
out.
Ling Tian
He was
forming the
deeply
sword in
afraid
his
that
hand.
the other party would really kill him in a fit
It said
of
that
anger.
apart from grasping
Others
the
might be
basics
wary
of
of
the
him
four Tao
because
of
he was
heaven
the
and
first
earth,
true
young
disciple
master
and
Duan Ling
adopted
Tian
son
of
of the
the
heavenly
also
emperor,
grasped the
but
sword
the
Tao
person
of the
in front
weapon
of
Tao
him
of
was
the
from the
Tao of
title
heaven and
temple's
earth.
main hall.
Moreover,
His background
was
was
even
even
stronger than Ji
Dao
Ying's.
with unlimited
As
potential.
for the people in the
As soon as
surroundings,
Shangguan
they were
Yunfeng
silent.
thought of this,
When the
Duan
upper
Ling
echelons
Tian
of
made his
Brahma
move.
Alliance looked
Under
at
the
Mi
watchful
Xian,
eyes of
their
the
eyes
crowd,
were filled
Duan
with
Ling
shock and
Tian
wariness.
casually swung
They
his
couldn't
sword
be any more
horizontally.
wary. The
As for
entire
the people
process
from the
seemed
title
as
temple,
though an ordinary
they still
person
had
was
lingering
casually
fears.
swinging his sword.
At the same time,
There was no
they were no
technique nor
longer
was there any
dissatisfied
brilliance.
or doubtful that
It was
the
just a
main hall
plain
master
and
had
ordinary
ordered them
sword
to
strike
listen
that
to the
was
person
swung
in
out
front
just
of them.
like that.
This was a
Moreover,
world where the
this
strong
sword
were
strike
respected.
met the thunderous
They were
energy
completely
of
convinced
Wulong's
by
punch
Mi
head-on.
Xian's strength,
The
and they were
terrifying
willing to
thunderous
follow
energy
him wherever
created
he
a
went.
long river
Do you
in
have
the
any
sky.
leads on Duan
It
Ling
was as
Tian?
though a thunderous
Mi
dragon
Xian
was
asked
flying
as he
through the
glanced
sky.
at Ji Ying.
It was
Ji
also
Ying
as
was
though a
startled at
thunderous
first,
meteor
but then
was
he
streaking
recovered
across
and
the
shook his
sky.
head.
Ever
Its
since
target
that
was
Duan
Ling
Ling
Tian
killed my junior
Under
brother,
the watchful
the
eyes of
heavenly
the crowd,
Union,
the
he was
simple and
disbanded,
unadorned
and he
sword
has
met
completely
Wulong's mighty
disappeared.
punch.
Recently,
In the next instant,
our Brahma
the
Alliance
crowd
has
saw
captured a few
Duan
people who were
Ling Tian's
previously
ordinary
in the
sword
heavenly
strike
Tao
was drowned
Alliance,
out by
but even
Wulong's
after
mighty
torturing
punch.
them to death,
It was
they
as though
still
he was
couldn't
a
reveal
lone
the
boat
whereabouts
that was
of
submerged
Duan
in
Ling
the
Tian.
ocean.
It's
Just
obvious
as
that
the
the
people
people
from
don't
the
know
Heavenly
where
Law
Duan Ling
Alliance
Tian
were
is.
feeling somewhat
So far,
disappointed.
nothing.
Rip.
A
At the
crisp,
mention of the
tearing
death
sound
of her
was
junior
clearly
brother, whom she
transmitted
regarded
into their
as her
ears.
own brother,
In the next
Ji Ying's
instant,
hands
they saw the
involuntarily
thunderous
clenched
energy
into
of
fists
Wulong's
as her
mighty
body
punch
began to
suddenly
tremble
stopped
slightly.
in midair.
Are any
It could
of the
not
Heavenly
move
Dao
forward at all.
Union's upper
Moreover,
echelons among
it
them?
was obvious the
Mi
energy
Xian
was
asked
still
again.
being depleted. Ji
Heavens.
Ying shook her head.
What's that?
The reason we were
At the
able to
same
capture
time,
those people
many
was because they
people saw a
boasted
crack
to
in
the
the sky
outside
that
world
had
that they were
stopped
from the
Wulong's
Heavenly
punch.
Dao Union
It was
and
like
had
the bloody
personally
mouth
witnessed
of
the
the
battle
gigantic
between
beast
beasts
that
that
had
had opened
opened
its
and my
mouth
junior
and
brother
devoured
Wulong.
the energy of
They're
Wulong's
just
punch.
ordinary
It's a
disciples of the
spatial
Heavenly
tear.
Dao Union.
Heavens.
After the Heavenly
Lord
Dao
Vice
Union
Alliance
disbanded,
leader
the
created
members
a
of the
spatial
Heavenly
tear
Dao
with
Union,
just a sword
including
strike?
the Union
Isn't
Master,
it said that
had
all
only gone their
god-level
separate ways in
powerhouses can
fear of
create
an
spatial
ordinary
tears
disciple?
in the Devata realms?
Those with some brains
Moreover,
naturally
the
wouldn't
space in the
easily
Nine
reveal
Serenities
that they were from the
battlefield
Heavenly
is
Dao
even more
Union.
stable than
However,
a Devata
there were
realm.
also those who
Ordinary
liked to boast.
god-level powerhouses
If they felt that
might
they could
not be
guarantee
able to
their own
create
safety,
a spatial
they
tear.
would still boast
Don't
to
tell
an
me Lord
appropriate
Vice
extent.
Alliance leader
As
is
such,
already
there were
a
naturally
god-level people who were
powerhouse.
unlucky.
Are you stupid?
Continue investigating.
If the Vice Alliance
Ji Ying
leader
said
is
in
a
god-level
voice.
powerhouse.
Although I
How
don't
can
want
he
to
enter
admit
the
it,
Nine
I have to
Serenities
admit
battlefield
that Duan Ling Tian's talent and comprehension many of the Heavenly Law Alliance's members, he's not even 700 years to tremble. Yet he already has such some high-ranking officials from the Heavenly Law Alliance also notice this. If he becomes a 9-star war god, brute force even you to create his match unless I personally Instead, he used his sword Dao that has been fused with the law of space to create a spatial tear. When Ji-Ying said this, even if it's clearly a little not many people can do it. She felt that Ji-Ying was looking down on her. Truly amazing. Facing Ji-Ying's anger, I didn't think I'd be able to witness her indifferently and didn't respond to the topic. My life has not been in vain. Arrange a secluded residence for me of the people from the Heavenly Law Alliance. Currently, Duan Lingtian's casual was unaware that the god created a spatial terror that devoured Wulong's energy. Sealed his soul and entered the Nine Serenities battlefield. Was also staring at Duan He was also unaware that Mi Xian had possessed the body of his old acquaintance coldly. Tang Sanpao. No one knew what he was currently cultivating. However, in the northern after a few moments, the cold light in Wulong's eyes disappeared and was replaced by the law of space. the space sword Tao of the only true disciple of the heaven and earth spirit energy in his little world that originated from the ruins of a realm of gods provided him with the best he withdrew the energy on his body, causing the violent lightning energy to dissipate him in the northern profound alliance. What's Wulong doing? Therefore, is he admitting defeat? Strength had improved. Many people from the Heavenly Law Everything was calm and peaceful. Although Wulong even the members of the Northern Profound Alliance was not the end of the battle. Duan Lingtian would be able to destroy the other two major forces in the Second North District. They did not know joining the Northern Profound Alliance had gradually given up on the idea as time passed. What's wrong? The new Supreme Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance was clearly a Buddha-like person who had retracted his energy and approached him. Any hopes for him. At this moment, Wulong had already arrived in front of Profound Alliance that was as peaceful as ever was shocked when a shrill cry rang from outside the Northern Profound Alliance's base. At the same time, your strength figures rushed in from outside in a panic. Under the gazes of the crowd, they shouted in panic. Had already arrived. The people from the Hishan Alliance are here. He looked at the people from the Autumn Clouds Alliance are here as well. You are the strongest 8-star leader of the Hishan Alliance have ever encountered. Is here personally. Even the person of the same generation that I admire the most. When the people from outside the Northern Profound Alliance's at the 8-star war god level, the members of the Northern Profound Alliance were instantly alarmed. You admit defeat? Many people had an ominous feeling in their hearts as he looked at Wulong calmly. Their ominous premonition came true. Defeat. Do I have any other leader of the Autumn Clouds Alliance? Looked at Duan Lingtian inside. Is outside the eastern mountain gate with a group of people. As Wulong the alliance leader of the Hishan raging power began to retract. Is outside it was the as if a spatial storm had surrounded him outside and then the northern mountain gate. Is Tai Ming. You admit the alliance leader of the conversation between Wulong and Duan the Northern Profound Alliance entered the ears of the people from the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Was suddenly besieged on all sides from the leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. What should we do? What should we do? Ordinary Heavenly Tao Alliance and the Autumn Clouds everyone's eyes are planning to strike first. Many of them destroy the Northern Profound on their faces. Heavens! The Heavenly Tao Alliance's Deputy Grand Guardian joined had actually defeated Alliance leaders earlier today. To destroy the Hishan Alliance was publicly recognized as the strongest person below the 9-star war god level in the 9 Serenities battlefield so early. However, I went out for a few months and only came back yesterday. Wulong was defeated by the Heavenly Tao Alliance's Deputy Alliance leader. And I'm already in such a mess. Onwards, the title of the strongest 9-star war god in the Autumn Serenities will give us a chance to join to the Heavenly Tao Alliance's they would dare to use someone who can join them in a crisis. However, just when everyone thought is different in the abysmal battlefield and Duan Lingtian who doesn't want to find a big tree to rely on, it was also the moment when members of the Northern Profound Alliance were panicking. In the depths of Wulong's eyes, there was a glimmer of a scheme that had succeeded, and the Autumn Clouds Alliance led their men into the Northern Profound Alliance. Black lightning suddenly shot out from the Northern Profound Alliance was killed. It flew straight towards Duan Lingtian. It couldn't escape between Duan Lingtian's eyebrows. This was Wulong's soul attacking divine weapon. Finally, the god leader of the Northern Profound Alliance, although it was a primitive divine artifact without an artifact's expression, was still a divine artifact. His eyes were so angry that they seemed like they could spit fire. It was no weaker than an emperor-grade celestial weapon of the Northern Profound Alliance. Furthermore, it was a divine artifact that could attack one's soul, dark as it could get, which made it even more difficult to obtain. Vice leader Wulong's attack was extremely sudden and ridiculously fast. The members of the Northern Profound Alliance who were still fearful of danger gathered around him. It was as if they were only safe by Luo Yiming and Luo Feng's. Did he still have any sense of shame for suddenly killing someone? Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes when he sensed the sudden soul attack from the divine weapon. They were the protectors of the Northern Profound unexpected to the others present. Each of them was a 7-star war god. However, there were a total of 11 of them. He had seen a lot along the way, so he still had the most basic sense of vigilance. The guardians of the Northern Profound Alliance stood behind his eyes when he saw Wulong's soul. They glared at the members of the Hishan Alliance and Qiuyun Alliance. His celestial origin energy although they looked strong aura surged out, and if one looked closely, the soul they could see a hint of fear in the depths of their eyes. Although it was only for a moment, some of them were even trembling slightly. With a high cultivation base to see what was going on. League had joined forces to attack the same thought appeared in their minds. The thing that they didn't want to see the most had happened. The law of time was the most effective law in dealing with Northern Profound Alliance arrived. For other laws, everyone in the Northern Profound Alliance energy that the Northern Profound Alliance would be able to take down the Hishan Alliance and did not need to do so one by one. With just a thought, when the Supreme Enforcer of the Northern Profound Energy had not made elemental profundity to affect the flow of time in a certain place. Although the Hashan Alliance and this was one of the reasons the law of time was widely acknowledged as the strongest forces to deal with the Northern Profound Alliance. At this moment, at that time, they weren't sure what the answer was. Attack with just a thought. The answer was obvious. The law of time. As for Luo Yiming, his expression changed drastically at this moment, and his pupils shrank rapidly. He did not expect this outcome. Yuan Fu, he thought he was close enough to Luo Yiming and said with a fake smile, no matter how strong his opponent was, as long as he was not a 9-star god of war, Yiming asked he was confident in a low voice as he looked at the alliance's leader. As for the people from the Heavenly Law Alliance who didn't say anything, but the cold gaze he admitted Luo Yiming was enough to say it all. After all, after killing Duan Lingtian was so angry that he spare anyone from the Northern Profound Alliance hasn't even come to ask for help, and you've already come knocking on our door. To escape from the Heavenly Law Alliance. All of you want to destroy the Northern Profound Alliance. He did not expect Duan Lingtian to have comprehended the law of time. If you want to blame someone, Tian had the Northern Profound Alliance for having another 8-star god of war. As long as he could freeze time, you should know that the balance between the three alliances can't be broken. And this moment of opportunity was enough to disrupt his plans. Although he had originally planned to kill Duan Lingtian with a sneak attack, their expression still turned ugly when they heard Yuan Fu say it himself. This way, even if he lost to Duan Lingtian, no one would know. The Supreme Guardian joined the Northern Profound Alliance. But he didn't do anything. Die, I'll fulfill your wish. Dragging the Northern Almost Profound at the same time as Wulong's expression changed. This Supreme Protector is too unskilled profundity of the law. We shouldn't have let him join the Northern Profound Alliance. Continue to block Wulong's the members of the Northern Profound Alliance were whispering to each other. To attack Even the Supreme Guardians of the Northern Profound Alliance had similar thoughts, skipped a beat, but they couldn't say it out loud communicated with different identities. Soul of the 7 treasures, exquisite sword, Huang. In the next moment, a ray of light shot out from between Duan Lingtian's brows as well. 3570. It was a 7-colored ray of light that was dazzling shouted with an ugly expression. Just a glance at it was enough from the Northern Xian Alliance immediately shut their mouths and kept quiet out of fear. As the saying goes, Yiming's cold gaze beautiful thing could often be the most dangerous thing. When he spoke again, this was the case. His tone was incomparably cold. As soon as the dazzling 7-colored sword ray appeared, it seemed to make everything around it pale in comparison. Supreme Protector even the heavens and the earth seem to have lost their color. If you are in the eyes of the crowd, you can leave the Northern Xian Alliance 7-colored light left. The Northern Xian Alliance doesn't need people like you. React. Wulong, Luo Yiming targeted by Duan the group of people who were whispering immediately lowered their heads. Had a huge change in his expression. If it was any other time, he subconsciously let out leaving the Northern Profound Alliance. The 7 treasures Luo Yiming's sword was a high-grade divine artifact. The Hishan Alliance and the Chilian Alliance were clearly divining to kill everyone in the Northern Profound Alliance. They could be used as both a material offensive divine just a moment ago, and many people were shouting that as long as they didn't kill him, they could leave the Northern Xian Alliance and even join the Hishan Alliance and Chilian Alliance. Wulong was using a low-grade divine artifact that did not even have a sword soul. At this point in time, they knew that their survival depended on their alliance leader that had a sword. If their alliance leader abandoned them, they would be killed by the Hishan Alliance at the same time and Chilian Alliance before they could even leave the North, including the old man who came with Wulong. Felt a chill in their hearts. The alliance leader of the Hishan Alliance, saw Yuan Fu, when Wulong's soul and looked at divine artifact was hit by the 7-colored sword ray. They are right. Not only did its energy dissipate, that befell but it had also been severed into 2 and was sent flying out of control. That Supreme Protector of your Northern Profound Alliance, the 7-colored sword ray that had lost a portion of its Supreme Protector of your Northern Profound Alliance. As soon as the 7-colored sword ray entered Wulong's glabella, where is your Supreme Protector? Aura suddenly spread out from Wulong's glabella. That he peed his pants under his Immediately bed? After, along with a wave of smile, became even more radiant. A phantom also appeared at the right people time. From the Hishan Alliance, the Heavenly and the Chilian Alliance couldn't help but laugh when they heard Yuan Fu's words. Duan Lingtian recognized the figure said might be possible. It was Jiyu. I wonder what an Emperor of the Ji fan looks like when he pees his pants. During the Devata realm's battle of the geniuses. He must be as pitiful as an ordinary person. Was Jiyu's second true disciple. Maybe even more naturally, Jiyu had left a soul mark no matter if it was the Hishan Alliance or the Chilian Alliance. They were all cried out anxiously as though he was clutching at a life-saving straw. Do you really want to meet the supreme protector of our northern profound alliance? Ji stared at Duan Ling Tian and was obviously slightly surprised. His eyes narrowed into
Heavenly
slits,
Emperor Ji,
a cold light flashing through them.
Duan Ling Tian looked at Ji
Yu's
silhouette and nodded as he greeted him.
Today,
Your North
your
Profound
disciple
Alliance,
who tried to kill me first.
Alliance,
And
if you want to plead on his behalf,
Autumn Cloud's
there's no need
have
for
been
that.
at odds with each other for
Duan
many
Ling
years.
Tian,
Now
have
that
never
you're
shown
shown mercy
mercy
to
to
those who
alliance
try
has
to kill
fallen.
me, I have to
Duan
meet the
Ling
culprit's
Tian's
tone was firm.
Alliance Master
He was not
Shimin,
afraid
what do you
of Ji
think?
Yu, the heavenly
Fu
emperor
looked
of
at
the
Shimin
Ji-fan
Jiangshan,
heaven and asked
who was
with a
ranked
smile.
first on the heavenly
I want to
emperor
meet him.
ranking. Shimin
I'm willing to
Jiangshan's
pay a
lips
price.
curled into a cold
Ji Yu
arc as
frowned
killing
when he heard the
intent
determination
flashed in his eyes.
Duan Ling Tian's voice.
It was the supreme
In the
protector
end,
of the
he did
North
not
Shen
beat around the
Alliance
bush.
that made him feel
It was
threatened.
clear he was willing
In
to
the
pay a
end,
price
he had
to
no
save his
choice but to
disciple's
put down
life.
his pride and
Not
seek
interested.
cooperation with the
As soon
Hishan
as
Alliance.
Duan Ling Tian's
It was the
words
first
left his
time in
mouth
his life
and
that he
Ji's
had been
expression
in
darkened.
such a
A
predicament.
seven-colored
This
light
embarrassment
rose
was
from Wulong's
also
body.
brewing in the depths
When it
of his heart,
expanded to a
and it
certain
turned into a
extent,
deep-seated
exploded.
hatred for the supreme
As for the
guardian
phantom
of the
of
North
Ji Yu's
Profound
soul
Alliance.
imprint.
It was also
Alliance
blown
Master
away.
Shimin.
According to
Spiritual
our
imprints
agreement,
were mostly
I will
used
let
to
you
send
kill
messages
him,
so that
the
Yuan
person
Fu
who
said
left
with
the
a bright
spiritual
smile.
imprint would be able to
Thank
sense
you.
that the person
Shimin
they left the
Jiangshan
spiritual
repeatedly
imprint on was in
expressed his
danger
thanks.
and rush over to
Brother.
rescue them. At this moment,
However,
Luo
Wulong,
Feng,
who
who
was
was
standing
standing behind
behind
Luo
Serenity's
Yiming,
battlefield,
was a little anxious.
Even if Ji
he
Yu,
transmitted
the
his
heavenly
voice.
emperor
of the Ji-fan heaven, could make it in time, he would not
Are you
be
still
able to
going to
enter
keep
the
us in
Nine
suspense?
Serenities battlefield.
What method
Boom.
do you have to deal
with
with
a
the current
deafening
situation?
explosion? Wulong's
Only
body
Luo
was
Feng
completely
completely knew how
annihilated
anxious
in
he
the
was
void
right
as
now.
if he had never
Before
existed.
the Hashan Alliance
Not only
and the
was his
Qiu Yin
spatial ring
Alliance came
destroyed,
here,
he
but
had
his
mentioned
blood
had
had
also
also
evaporated.
However,
The second
his cousin
true
said that he
disciple
couldn't
of the
wait
heavenly
for the
emperor
Hashan
of the
Alliance
Ji-fan
and the Qiu
heaven,
Yin Alliance
who was said
to come
to be
here and
invincible
kill them.
under the
Why did
nine-star
his
war
cousin
god
say
in the
that?
Nine
Why
Serenities
did his cousin
battlefield,
keep him in
had
suspense?
died in an inconspicuous
Originally,
corner
as time
in the
passed,
eastern part
he was
of
no
the Nine
longer
Serenities
curious about
battlefield.
this matter.
He's
However,
dead. When faced with
figure
such a
was the
situation,
heavenly
he
emperor
couldn't
of
help
the
but
Ji-fan
recall his
heaven,
cousin
Lord
Luo
Yiming's
Yiming's confidence.
Obviously,
Who wants to
it's
kill me?
obvious that the heavenly
Before
emperor
Luo
of the
Yiming could
Ji-fan
respond to
heaven
Luo
left a
Feng,
spiritual
a voice
imprint on
suddenly
his
rang out
disciple
in front of
Wulong.
Luo Yiming.
Before
At the
Wulong
same
died,
time,
the
under
spiritual
everyone's
imprint
gaze,
blocked a
a
blow
figure
for him.
appeared out of
However,
thin air
it was
in front
obvious
of
that he
Luo
could not
Yiming.
protect Wulong.
This person was
So he
wearing
came
a
out to
loose
negotiate
black
with the
robe,
deputy
a black
alliance
cloak,
leader.
and a
The
conical
deputy
bamboo
alliance
hat.
leader ignored
His head
him
was
and
slightly
killed
lowered.
Wulong directly.
His entire body
Everyone
was
in the
shrouded
Heavenly
in a
Dao
disguise,
Alliance,
including
his
the
face
alliance
and figure
leader
couldn't
of the
be
Heavenly
seen
Dao
clearly,
Alliance,
making him
Shangguan
seem
Yunfeng,
mysterious.
was shocked by the
He's the
scene
supreme
earlier.
protector.
They did not expect
Because
the
some of the
deputy
members of the
alliance
Northern
leader of
Profound
the Heavenly
Alliance
Dao
had seen
Alliance
this
to be
person
so
before and had
domineering.
even described him. Many of them
He
guessed
did not
that he
even
was the
give face to
mysterious
Ji-fan,
grand guardian
the
of the
heavenly
Northern
emperor of
Profound
the
Alliance,
Ji-fan heaven,
who was
supreme
ranked
protector
first
on the heavenly emperor
While the crowd
ranking.
was guessing the identity of the person in front of them, Luo Yiming bowed to Duan
Chapter
Ling Tian.
3560.
I had no choice
The
but to
people from the
disturb
Heavenly
Supreme
Dao
Protector
Alliance
today.
did not expect
I
Ji
hope
Yu,
Supreme
the
Protector
Heavenly
can
Emperor
forgive
of
me.
the Ji-fan Tian,
Luo
to
Yiming's
appear.
attitude was
However,
very humble.
they did not
It
expect
could even
Ji
be
Yu
said
to
that he was
appear.
extremely
Even
humble.
Ji-fan Tian,
The people
Ji
from the
Yu,
north,
the
Shen
heavenly monarch
Alliance,
of
were
Ji-fan
shocked by
Tian,
the news.
had revealed his
Even the
God
deputy
spirit
leader
imprint
of the
and
Northern
intended to
Profound
save the
Alliance,
life of his
Luo
disciple,
Feng,
was
was
stunned.
But he still
At
failed.
this moment, the
A
deputy
crazy
alliance
thought
leader
appeared
of
in
the
his
Heavenly
mind.
Dao Alliance,
Could it be that his
Purple
cousin's
Marquis,
confidence
was Duan
came
Ling
from the
Tian,
supreme
the
protector
only
of the
true
Northern
disciple
Profound
of the Heavenly
Alliance?
Emperor of the
However,
solitary
although
destructive
this
heaven?
supreme protector's
After
strength
all,
was strong,
Ji was not
perhaps
an
even
ordinary
stronger than
heavenly
his
emperor.
cousin.
It was
How
still
could someone
unrealistic for
first
him
on
to
the
join
heavenly
forces
emperor
with him
ranking
and
his
his
cousin
cousin
to deal with the
heavenly
four
emperor.
8-star war
Isn't
gods
the
from the
deputy
Hishan
alliance
Alliance
leader
and the
afraid
Qiu
that
Yin
heavenly
Alliance?
emperor Ji Yu
Even
will
if the
seek
supreme
revenge on
protector
him?
of the Northern Profound
Many people
Alliance
from
was
the
a
heavenly
peak
Dao
8-star god
Alliance
of war
asked
and his
worriedly,
cousin was close to a
seek
peak
revenge.
8-star god of war.
Some
Their
people from the
opponents had
Heavenly
two
Dao
peak
Alliance
8-star
were
gods of
dismissive
war
of
and two
Duan Ling
peak
Tian's
8-star
words.
gods of war
Don't
who were
forget
on
that our
par with the
deputy
Supreme
alliance
Protector.
leader's master is
3 against
also
4.
a god.
There was no way they could win.
He's the legendary
Perhaps
heavenly
my
emperor
cousin's
of the
confidence
solitary
comes from the
destructive
divine
heaven.
artifact in
He's
the supreme
ranked second
protector's
on the
possession.
heavenly emperor ranking.
However, the divine
That's right.
artifact
We're
isn't
both
much
gods,
stronger
but
than
we
an
don't know who's
emperor-grade
stronger.
celestial weapon
Although
with an
the
artifact
legendary
soul.
heavenly emperor of
Luo
the solitary
Solitary was filled
destructive
with heaven
heaven
is younger.
The alliance
It said that
leader
he's only
is so
10,000
respectful
years
to the
old.
supreme protector.
In other words,
The
this,
heavenly emperor
the
of the
people of the northern
G-Fanteon was
profound
already the
alliance were
heavenly emperor
dumbfounded
of the
by the scene before
G-Fanteon when
them.
he was born. That's right. It shouldn't be difficult for such
The
a
leader
young
of the
god to
Hashan
catch up to the
alliance,
heavenly
Yuan Fu,
emperor of the
couldn't help
G-Fandom.
but let out a cold laugh.
Some people from the
Luo
heavenly
Yimin,
Dao
do you
alliance
think
were
that by
confident
acting
in
like
Feng
this,
Qingyang,
we will feel
the
that his
heavenly
strength is
emperor
far
of the
greater than
solitary
yours and will
destructive
feel
heaven?
fear?
They felt
Unless
Feng
he's a
Qingyang's
9-star
potential
god
was
of war
much
or a
greater than the
peak
heavenly
8-star
emperor
god
of the
war like the
G-Fanteon,
former second
and it would
leader
not
of the
be
Brahma
difficult for
alliance,
him to catch up to the
Wulong,
heavenly
or the
emperor
former
of the
vice leader of the
G-Fanteon.
heavenly Dao alliance,
Naturally,
Some people thought the former vice leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance or the former vice leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. I don't think so. Upon hearing Yuan the Heavenly Emperor of the people from the Heishan Alliance and Qiuyun Alliance who were looking at the cloaked for the Heavenly Emperor of the solitary destructive heaven if he can scare us. I think so too. The Alliance leader of the Heishan Alliance, the Heavenly Emperor of the Alliance leader of the Northern Profound Heavenly Emperor of the Jifantian leaves since the Alliance leader of the Northern Profound Alliance. While the people from the Heavenly Law Alliance were whispering to each other, really afraid. The heavenly bewilderment in the eyes of the Heishan Alliance outside the Nine Serenities battlefield and in the heavenly Emperor Palace of eyes were filled with murderous extremely ugly expression on his face. It was as if they couldn't wait to kill everyone in the North Profound Alliance and turn their base into a heavenly Emperor of the solitary destructive heaven. The voice that came out of nowhere sounded again. Any face at all. This time, his disciple, everyone heard it clearly, was killed right in front of him. Man. One had to know that the legacy disciples that facing the direction of the Qiuyun Alliance's alliance and the legacy disciples that he, so accepted were similarly not ordinary. Face was the status of his two legacy disciples in his eyes was no different from his own sons. A person like you who hides his head and tail will definitely die. Originally, is that so? You and I didn't interfere in each other's business, who was wearing a black robe, a black cloak, the enmity and a conical bamboo hat to have been formed indifferently. You must die. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared from where he stood with a whoosh. Accept your high-grade divine artifact with an artifact alarm. As for muttered to himself with a gloomy expression and a cold look in his eyes. A mocking smile appeared on his mouth suddenly curled into when you appeared just now, based on his words. I knew you were proficient in the law of space. The divine artifact I've already prepared for teleportation to kill his true disciple at the same time that Duan It was a high-grade divine artifact with an artifact the energy that had long since been accumulating. I really don't know how Duan Lingtian obtained his high-grade divine artifact. It was like a torrent bursting out of a dam, and its momentum was vast as if it could crush everything. Such a precious treasure. If it was any other 8-star war god, even a moreover, even if he obtained it, he wouldn't have given it to Duan in front of Shimenjiangshan. In Jiyu's opinion, even if attack at the same time, obtained such a precious treasure, taking the initiative to gain the upper hand, they would definitely be battered of obtaining more than 2 such precious treasures. Duan Lingtian did not dare to entertain such war god. His strength might not have reached the level of a 9-star war god. He would have to carefully consider what kind of heaven-defying, fortuitous encounter the Tao of control had that caused him to become enemies with Duan as well as the Tao of sword of the 4 Taos of heaven and earth. It wasn't as simple as comprehending the laws to a certain degree. Battlefield. The old man who came with Wulong stood at the same time outside the Heavenly Tao Alliance's mountain gate. The space before Duan His expression was extremely unsightly as he stared at Duan Lingtian to be completely suppressed and annihilated. Duan Lingtian, at the same time, Emperor's divine soul imprint appeared and said that he was willing to pay any price to save young Master Long's life. And it carried a hint of sword intent. How dare you kill young Master Long? It was like a broadsword that tore through the sky, considered one of the most senior people in the heavenly Emperor Palace of the Jifantian. If one looked closely, before he became a celestial emperor, he was already chosen by the heavenly Emperor Jiyu to cultivate him. Vice Alliance in the end, Master he became the strongest person in the heavenly Emperor Palace under the shocked and incredulous gazes of the crowd. That was before the 2 true disciples of the heavenly Emperor Jiyu grew up. One of the 3 giants of the northern second region of the 9 Serenities battlefield, one after another. Had his head flying. Since he had been following Wulong since he was a child, he was used to following and protecting Wulong. His body was crushed into a bloody mist by the devastating spatial energy around and helping Wulong deal with trivial matters. A moment ago and had declared that he would kill the Northern Profound Alliance's supreme protector. Wulong was talented just like that. He was the kind of person who flaunted his bravado. Deathly silent. He needed the old man's guidance. This time, when Wulong came to look for Duan Lingtian, he had advised Wulong that there was no need for him to do so. At the very least, Duan Lingtian had yet to display his strength. Of the people from the Heishan Alliance and the Qiuyun Alliance. Duan Lingtian was stronger than Wulong that fell from the sky. It was only a minority. It was cold compared to the unknown Duan Lingtian. But the hearts of the people from the Heishan Alliance and the Qiuyun battlefield were even colder. That Wulong was the strongest among the 8-star gods of war. However, an existence close to the peak of the 8-star war god realm, he could not tolerate even a grain of sand in his ears. Just now, they didn't even have time to react. And his Tao vanished. It could be said that Shimenjiangshan was instantly killed by the enemy. Offended the heavenly emperor and the heavenly from the northern profound alliance, except for the alliance leader Luo Yiming, who was smiling as if he wasn't surprised by this. The others, including the vice alliance leader Luo Feng, were dumbfounded. Indifferently as he looked at the old man. Of the northern profound alliance, he had a good impression of Wulong. Some of the people from the Northern Profound Alliance as the alliance leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance the Supreme Protector and felt their faces burning, as if they had just been slapped in the face. Suddenly interfered with his plan, the people from the Hishan Alliance and that it made his heart tremble. Looked at each other, even if he had gone all out in each other's eyes. The most he could do was ensure that he would not die. Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance, it was impossible for him to ensure that he would be unharmed in such a short time. It was even more impossible for him to ensure that he would only be lightly injured. He was certain that he would be severely injured. Fortunately, they weren't the only ones in despair. Even the Alliance leader Yuan Lingtian only felt that he was extremely lucky, and the Vice Alliance leader comprehended the law of time in the secret chamber in the Azura Hell. As the saying goes, the layman enjoys the show, while the expert appreciates the skill. Yuan also knew that he had been careless. The Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance made his move. He should not have clearly see what happened in front of them because of the black cloak. Coupled with his experience over the past 200 years, he secretly remembered that he would never be so careless in the future and put himself in danger. They felt that even if they were in his place, death had been too dangerous without a doubt. It was also because of this that he only had one thought about Wulong. Chi Kun asked Yuan Fu there was no room for negotiation. Right now, even if he regretted following the Northern Emperor Ji wanted to negotiate, he would not have completely forgotten. When the old man heard Yuan Lingtian's words, his face immediately darkened. He had been insisting on to avenge Wulong? Was he tired of living? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Yuan Fu, if Wulong had been killed by Duan Lingtian, cupped his hands he would not be Duan Lingtian and said respectfully, "You're on your own. We are only targeting the Northern Profound Alliance coldly at Duan Lingtian. He prepared to leave. Master Li Feng is willing to stay out of today's matter. He would definitely avenge the Profound Alliance, even if he was not a match for Duan Lingtian, who did not have a few relatives and Profound Alliance. He treated Wulong as his own son. Considering that Wulong was dead, he felt that he had lost not only was Yuan Fu humble, but he was also tempting Duan to avenge Wulong with the wealth of the entire Northern Profound Alliance. Although the killing intent in the old man's eyes had disappeared and he did not want to be discovered by Duan Lingtian, if God gave him a second chance, know that he had been discovered by the observant held a knife to his neck, therefore, he would never join forces with them to attack the Northern Profound Alliance. Duan Lingtian spoke at the right time. Just the person in front of him was enough to wipe out the Mountain Alliance, and words caused the old man's expression to change drastically. The 8-star war gods of the Northern Profound Alliance on his body raged as he prepared Yuan Fu's words. He had comprehended from the Northern Profound Alliance in terms of speed. He was faster than Wulong. They looked at Duan Lingtian's silhouette anxiously, in front of Duan that their supreme guardian was already tempted by the offer. There was no way he could escape, and Luo Feng knew that Duan Lingtian wasn't that kind of person because they had spent a lot of time with Duan Lingtian, and a 7-colored sword ray someone of Duan Lingtian's level wouldn't be interested in their wealth. The old man followed in Wulong's footsteps and died. From the beginning to the end, Luo Duan decided to step forward and promised their grand guardian that after destroying the Mountain Alliance as when he was in the mundane realm, they would give him all the wealth knew that it was necessary to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Luo Yiming had just opened his mouth and spat out a syllable when he shut his mouth his killing intent towards him. This was because the supreme guardian of the Northern Shen Alliance sometimes it was too deliberate and had the opposite effect. Buzz. It was also at that moment that Duan Lingtian wanted to kill him. It swept out like the scythe of the grim gods of war died just like that. Fu didn't expect Duan Lingtian to make a move and his head was Alliance master. Then a mist of blood fell from the sky. Other than Wulong, he also recognized the leader of the Mountain Alliance. He was a protector of the Brahma Alliance and was known as the third strongest person in the Brahma Alliance. His strength was second only to the two Alliance masters of the Brahma Alliance, and he looked miserable. Who were Wulong and his senior brother. He would be happy that the other Heavenly Law of the Mountain Alliance were also looking because it meant that he would be the new Alliance leader of the Mountain Alliance. Their eyes were burning with passion. He couldn't feel happy at all. This was because the death of this alliance leader was a death wary of danger, even in times of peace. Chi Kun and the Vice Alliance leader of the Chiu-Yin Alliance looked at each other, and both of them sent a message to each other at the same time. The Heavenly Emperor of the Brahma Heaven could not enter the Nine Serenities battlefield. They ran in two different directions. However, in the Nine Serenities battlefield, as for the other members of the Hishan Alliance and Chiu-Yin Alliance, of the Brahma Alliance, they had never thought that their Brahma Alliance's current position in the Nine Serenities battlefield could be attributed to Wulong's and at the same time, They released their energy,
Wulong's senior brother was a 9-star god of war, accompanied by two soft but ear-piercing in the 9 Serenities
they
battlefield.
saw that their two Vice
Alliance
leaders were also cut into pieces like watermelons by the black cloak that was like the scythe of the Grim
definitely
Reaper.
Not
They
let
followed
this matter
in the
rest.
footsteps of their two
This
Alliance
time,
leaders.
I'm afraid the
in the
Vice
blink of an
Alliance
eye,
Master will
the
not
4
be the
8-star
only
gods of
unlucky
war
one.
from the Mountain
If the
Alliance
Alliance
and
Master of the Brahma
Alliance were
Alliance
all
is
dead,
enraged,
all of
this
this happened in
happened
the span of
will
10
be wiped
breaths.
out as well.
Within 10 breaths, 4 8-star gods of war were killed. Now,
Chapter
the members of the
35-61.
Northern Profound Alliance,
The group of people
from the
Heavenly
Heavenly
Tao
floating
Alliance
in the air with
stared at
reverence.
Duan Ling Tian
Even
with
the
fear
Alliance
written
leader
all
of the
over their
Northern
faces.
Profound Alliance,
What Duan
Luo
Ling
Yimin,
Tian had
was
done
no
today
exception.
was not only shocking,
You should be
but
able
it
to deal
also
with
made
the
them
rest,
realize
right?
they could no longer
Duan
stay
Ling
in the
Tian
Heavenly
put
Tao
on the
Alliance.
black cloak behind
The
him
leader
again,
of the
and it
Brahma
fluttered
Alliance
even
was
though there was
Wulong's
no
senior
wind.
brother.
He
The
turned
first
around
true
and asked the
disciple of the
Alliance
Heavenly
leader of the
Emperor
Northern
Jifan.
Profound Alliance,
He was so
Luo
strong
Yimin.
that he had even
Grand
reached the
Guardian,
level of a
leave the rest to
9-star
me.
war god.
Luo
Although
Yimin
the
quickly
deputy
nodded
leader
and
of the
replied,
Heavenly Tao
"This
Alliance
time,
was strong.
we'll have to trouble
He was
you to
only
help the
invincible
Northern
under
Profound
the
Alliance.
9-star war god.
If he
Duan
encountered
Ling
a
Tian nodded
9-star
and then
war god,
teleported,
it would be
disappearing
difficult for
in
him
front
to
of
escape
everyone's
death.
eyes.
Alliance
Coming
leader,
and going without a trace
Duan
was
Ling
nothing
Tian
more than
flashed
this,
and appeared in front of the leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance, Shengguan Yunfeng.
As for the members of the
he
He
looked at him
Alliance
calmly and
Xiao
said,
Yun Alliance,
"What are you going to do
they didn't
next?"
dare to run away
He had
after
seen
the
the
death
fear
of their
on the
Alliance
faces
leader
of the
and
people
Vice
of the
Alliance
Heavenly
leader.
Tao Alliance.
Now that they saw
He
the
also
supreme
heard the
guardian
whispers
of the
some
North
people.
Profound Alliance
Because of
leaving,
this, he
they
also
started
knew
to
that
flee.
the first true
However,
disciple
without
of the
an
Heavenly
8-star
Emperor
god
of
of war
Jifan
to lead them,
was a person
they were
who would
no
protect
different
his
from a
own.
mob to the
If he
Northern
knew that
Profound
Wulong
Alliance
had
who
died
had 2
here, he
8-star
would
gods of
definitely
war.
not let it go.
In addition,
He could
the
imagine
members
that
of
he
the
would
Northern
receive the
Profound
news very
Alliance
soon.
were already full
He just
of anger.
needed the Heavenly
Now
Emperor
that their
of
Grand
Jifan
Guardian
to send
had boosted
someone
their
into the
morale,
9
they were
Serenities
all full
battlefield
of
to
vigor.
send a message to
In
him.
the end, none
Young
of the
Palace
members of the
Master,
Mountain
are
Alliance
you
and
confident that you
Xiao
can
Yun
defeat
Alliance
the
were
first
able
true
to
disciple
escape.
of the
I
Heavenly
plan to
Emperor
give
of
all
Jifan,
the spoils
the
of war
9-star
today to
war
the
god?
Grand Guardian. Does
Shengguan
anyone
Yunfeng's
have any
expression
objections?
was very solemn.
After resolving
Duan
this
Ling Tian's
crisis,
answer to
the
this
Alliance
question
leader
was
of the
very
Northern
important,
Profound
as it would
Alliance
determine
stood
the
in the
future
air
of the
and looked
Heavenly
around
Tao
as he
Alliance.
asked in a
"I'm
serious
not a
tone.
match for the
He
9-star
felt that the
war god
Grand
now."
Guardian didn't care about
Duan
these
Ling
spoils
Tian
of
shook
war.
his head.
However,
Before his
some things
celestial
couldn't be
origin
avoided
energy
just
developed
because
the
the Grand
characteristics
Guardian
of
didn't
divine
care
power.
about them.
Even if
It
he
was
had a
one
high
thing
grade
to give
divine
them to the Grand
artifact
Guardian
and mastered
and
the
be
law of
rejected.
space,
It
it would
was
still be
another
very
thing to
difficult
not
for
give
him
them
to
to the
defeat the
Grand
9-star war god.
They couldn't be compared.
The gap between divine power and
Luo Feng was
celestial
the first
origin
to shake his
energy
head.
was too big.
Even the
Alliance
first leader,
true
if it
disciple of
wasn't
the
for the
Heavenly
Grand
Emperor
Guardian,
of Jifan,
we would have
only
ended
had a
up like
low-grade
them.
divine
All
artifact.
the spoils of
With
war
his
should be given
celestial
to the
origin
Grand
energy
Guardian.
that contained
No
the
one in the
characteristics
Northern
of divine
Profound
power,
Alliance had
the
any
power he could
objections to
display
Luo
was
Yimin's
stronger than
words.
his high-grade
They all
divine
felt
artifact.
that it was only right.
If I can turn my
the members of the
celestial
Northern
origin
Profound
energy
Alliance
into divine
were
energy,
in high spirits.
there's no need for me
The
to
members
fear
of the
the
Mountain
strongest
Alliance
true
and
disciple
Xiao Yun
of the
Alliance
Heavenly
were the
Emperor
backbone
Jifan.
of the Mountain Alliance
However,
and
I'll
Xiao Yun
definitely
Alliance.
lose if I
As
fight
for
him
the
now.
remaining members
If
of
the
the
5
Mountain
divine
Alliance
elements
and
had
Xiao Yun
not fallen
Alliance,
into a
even
deep
if they didn't make a move,
Duan Ling
they would
Tian
have
was
scattered
confident
the
that he
moment
could
they heard the
defeat or
news.
even kill
From
the
today
9-star god
onwards,
of war
the
with their
Northern
help,
Profound
even if the
Alliance
gap
would
between them
dominate
was
the
not
second
small.
North District.
But now he couldn't.
I didn't expect
I
the
understand.
Grand Guardian to appear in the
Shengguan
Northern
Yunfeng bitterly
Profound Alliance.
smiled.
It seems
Based
that
on
I
the
can
Grand
only
Guardian's
disband
strength,
the
he is
Heavenly Tao
definitely a
Union.
top 8-star god of war.
Duan Ling
A
Tian
member of the
repeatedly
Northern
apologized.
Profound Alliance
Young
exclaimed,
Palace Master,
"A top
there's no need
8-star
for
god
that.
of war?" As
Even
Shengguan
an
Yunfeng
ordinary
shook his
top
head,
8-star
the bitter
god of war
smile
wouldn't
on
be
his
able to
face
turn the
disappeared.
situation around today.
Disbanding the
After
Heavenly
all,
Law Alliance
the Alliance
is
leader
nothing
of the
to
Mountain
us.
Alliance,
It's
Yuan
just
Fu,
a change of
and
residence.
the Alliance leader of the
In this
Xiao Yun
9th
Alliance,
Serenity battlefield,
Ximenjiang,
there are
both
many
close
great
to the
powers
top
as there
8-star
are
god of
clouds.
war.
With
Their
their
Grand Guardian,
strength,
it's definitely easy for them to enter the other
gods of
powers.
war.
He might even be on
Yunfeng
par with
paused
the
for a
former
moment
second
before he
Alliance
continued to
leader of the
say,
Brahma Alliance,
"Today,
it's not
Wulong
just me."
And the short-lived
If the other members of the Heavenly
Heavenly Law Alliance were to choose between disbanding the Heavenly Law Alliance and witnessing the battle between Yu and Wulong, naturally didn't know about the Northern Profound Alliance's change in attitude towards him. Finished speaking, today he turned to the members of the Heavenly Law Alliance and said in a loud voice, the Alliance leader of the Northern Profound Alliance, due to the threat from the Brahma Alliance, had sent him a message that forced him to come out of his seclusion. Upon hearing Shangguan Yunfeng's words, if he didn't make a move today, the members of the Heavenly Law Northern Profound Alliance would be annihilated. At that time,
They had
he would
already
be the
guessed
only
this would
one
happen,
left, so they
he
would
would
not
have to
find
surprised.
another faction to
Now,
stay in.
the young
This was
imperial
something he
empress
couldn't allow.
is apologizing
Even
to
if
me.
he didn't consider this,
I said
he
there's
could
no
not
need
just
for that.
stand by and
Do
do
you think
nothing
the
because
young
of the imperial
promise he made
empress
to
needs
Luo
to
Yiming,
apologize?
the leader of the Northern
Shangguan
Profound
Yunfeng
Alliance,
deliberately
for
raised
this
his
reason,
voice when
he
he said
made
the
a
last
move.
sentence. After making
When the
the
members
move,
of the
he
Heavenly
returned
Law
to his
Alliance
cultivation
regained their senses.
After
They
all,
all
his
shook their
celestial
heads in
origin
unison.
energy was on the
Of
verge
course,
of
there's no need
transforming
for that.
into divine
To
energy.
us,
Being
he had
able
a
to
feeling
witness
it wouldn't
the battle
take long
between
for
the
his
young imperial
celestial
empress
origin
and
energy
Wulong
to
with our
develop
own
the divine
eyes is
energies
already worth
characteristics.
living.
At
At
that
that
time,
time,
he would become
disbanding
the
the
Heavenly
Heavenly Star
Law
God of
Alliance
War
is just a
At
change
that
of
time,
residence.
he would be able
That's
to do
right.
whatever he wanted
Even if we
in the
had to
Nine
choose
Serenities
now,
battlefield.
we would still choose to watch the battle between the young Imperial Empress and Wulong. As long as he was in the
Young
Nine
Imperial
Serenities
Empress,
battlefield,
you don't
he would
have to
not be
blame
afraid
yourself.
of Ji Ying,
Even if
the
we are no
leader of
longer
the Brahma
members of the
Alliance,
Heavenly Law
or the
Alliance
people
in the
from the
future,
Tidal Temple.
we will still
The
remember
heaven
that
and
we
earth
once
spirit
joined a
energy
force
in the
called
realms
the
of
Heavenly
gods
Law
is
Alliance
supposed to
in
be
the Nine
absorbed by
Serenities
the gods to
battlefield.
cultivate.
Our former
I don't
deputy
feel
leader
anything
had once
special
killed
after
the
absorbing
second
the
leader
heaven
of the
and earth
Alliance,
spirit
Ji
energy in my
Fantian.
little world.
He was
But my
recognized
celestial
as the
origin
strongest
energy
person
is
below
already
the
showing
nine
signs
star
of
God of war
transforming.
in the Nine
This is
Serenities
amazing.
battlefield.
Duan
His name was
Lingtian,
Wulong.
naturally,
We were
decided
once
to strike
members of
while
the
the
Heavenly
iron was
Law
hot.
Alliance.
He wanted to
Because
temper
of
his
you,
celestial
deputy leader,
origin energy to the
destroying
point
Wulong
where it would
today
develop
is
the
enough for
divine
me to
energies
brag about for the
characteristics.
rest of my life.
This was the most
Although
crucial
the
step
members of the
before one
Heavenly
could
Law
become a god.
Alliance knew that they were
Only
going to
after
part
this
ways,
step could
they
one
did not
be considered
feel sad
a
at all.
demigod. Instead, they felt that it was worth it to watch the battle between Duan Lingtian and Wulong at the cost of disbanding the Heavenly Law Alliance.
Chapter 35
Young
72.
Imperial Empress, the
Did you
second
see
North
that?
District
No
didn't
one
have
will
a
blame
strong
you for
presence
this.
among the many
Shangguan
districts in the
Yunfeng
North.
looked at Duan
After
Lingtian
all,
and
it
said
was
with a
only
smile,
one of the many
"At this
districts in the
moment,
North.
Duan Lingtian's
However,
heart was
recently,
filled with emotions.
the second North District
Sure enough,
had become
those
famous
who dared
because
to
of
enter the
something
Nine
that happened in
Serenities
the second
battlefield
North
were
District.
not simple people.
One of the three superpowers,
Perhaps these people's
the
strength
Northern
was not
Shan
as strong
Alliance,
as his,
had destroyed
but
the
their
other two
temperaments were as
superpowers,
firm as a
the
rock.
Hishan Alliance
They would
and the
not
Chilean
blame the
Alliance.
heavens and blame
Since
others
then,
just because
the
of the
Northern
waves
Shan
in front of
Alliance
them.
had become
For
the most
them,
powerful
wandering
force
from
in the
place to
second
place
North
was a
District.
common occurrence.
Although there were many
Young
superpowers
Imperial
in the
Empress,
North District
at
that
the
were the
same
most
time,
powerful in
Shangguan
their
Yunfeng
respective districts.
transmitted his voice to
However,
Duan Lingtian.
most of the superpowers
Next,
in
if
their
you still want to
respective districts
cultivate
were either
peacefully in the
stronger
Nine
from the
Serenities
start or they had
battlefield,
defeated
you can
their
choose
opponents.
to conceal your
It was
identity
rare to
and
see a
hide your true
superpower like
appearance.
the Northern Shan
That way,
Alliance that
you
had
can just
defeated
find a
two
force to
superpowers
join.
who were on par
If you
with
don't
them.
want to conceal
Didn't the
your
Northern
identity,
Shan
there is
Alliance
another
only
way to
have
go.
two
You
8-star
can
gods
join
of
the
war?
other forces
I
that are
know that the
hostile to the
Hishan
Brahma
Alliance
Alliance
and the
and have
Chilean Alliance
9-star
each
gods
have
of
two
war.
8-star gods
Among
of
those
war.
forces, the
How could they
Alliance
not
leader of the
destroy the
Brahma
Northern
Alliance
Shan
won't be
Alliance
able
when
to
they
touch
work
you.
together?
Of
Moreover,
course, this
they were
second option
destroyed
is
by the
also
Northern
risky.
Shan Alliance? When the news of the second North District spread to the other districts in the North, many people felt that it was unbelievable. However, as time passed, more and more accurate news spread from the second North District. Only then did they realize that this seemingly impossible matter was indeed true. The Northern Shan Alliance destroyed the Hishan Alliance and the Chilean Alliance not long ago. The Northern Shan Alliance's Grand Guardian killed the alliance leader of the Chilean Alliance and the alliance leader of the Hishan Alliance. Even the two vice-alliance leaders of the Hishan Alliance and the Chilean Alliance were killed by him while they were running away. When the news spread, the entire North District was shocked. The alliance leaders of the Hishan Alliance and the Chilean Alliance were famous in the North District. They were very close to becoming 8-star gods of war. Even such people were killed in seconds? Even a top 8-star god of war wouldn't be able to do this. Could the Northern Shan Alliance's Grand Guardian be a 9-star god of war? If he's a 9-star god of war, then everything can be explained. I heard that the Northern Shan Alliance's Grand Guardian isn't a 9-star god of war. Moreover, why would a 9-star god of war stay in the North District? Even in the Central Region, a 9-star god of war is a top figure. When they found out that the Grand Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance was only an 8-star war god, many people were shocked. So far, among the 8-star gods of war that have appeared in the Nine Serenities battlefield, other than the Supreme Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance, I'm afraid that only the former number 1 9-star god of war and the current number 1 9-star god of war have this kind of ability. That's right. This Supreme Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance is comparable to the former second leader of the Brahma Alliance, Wulong, and the short-lived vice leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance, Duan Lingtian. Do you know the name of the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance?
I heard that his name is Li Feng. Just like this, the name Li Feng rose to fame in the northern part of the 9th Serenity battlefield like a comet. Practically all the people in the northern part of the 9th Serenity battlefield knew this name as long as they weren't in closed-door cultivation all the time. In fact, after the name Li Feng was promoted in the north, it was no surprise that the people in the other parts of the 9 Serenities battlefield had more or less heard about the existence of such a person in the north. This included the Brahma Alliance as well. Naturally, by the time the news reached the Brahma Alliance, more than half a year had passed since Li Feng, the supreme guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance, killed the 4 8-star war gods in one strike. During this time, the atmosphere in the Brahma Alliance was tense. This was because everyone in the Brahma Alliance had been busy searching for the whereabouts of the only true disciple of the Heavenly Emperor of the solitary destructive heaven, Duan Lingtian. Anyone who could find any useful clues would be rewarded generously by the Heavenly Emperor of the Brahma Heaven. More than half a year ago, the Tidal Temple had sent a Supreme Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance. Then, the Supreme Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance was sent by the Tidal Temple. The Supreme Guardian of the Tidal Temple was the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple's branch in the 10,000 Beasts Heaven. He was of the same generation as Wu Hongqing, the Hall Master of the main hall of the Tidal Temple. Moreover, he was Wu Hongqing's junior brother. The two of them had known each other since they were young and had grown up together in the Tidal Temple. However, Wu Hongqing's talent had become even more outstanding, and he was now a god king. On the other hand, the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple's branch in the 10,000 Beasts Heaven was stuck at the demigod realm. He was unable to take the final step to become a god. The Hall Master of the Tidal Temple's branch in the 10,000 Beasts Heaven was called Yu Chaochuan. He was a middle-aged man with a medium build and an ordinary face. He looked harmless, but he was a powerful 9-star war god. Wu Hongqing, the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple, had asked Yu Chaochuan to help Mi Xian because of their close relationship and Mi Xian's special identity. After all, Mi Xian looked exactly like the former young Hall Master of the Tidal Temple, Tang Sanpao. Lord Mi Xian. Although Yu Chaochuan and Mi Xian lived very close to each other in Brahma Alliance, this was the second time Yu Chaochuan had come to find Mi Xian. The first time he had come to find Mi Xian was when he had just arrived. Before he came in, he had learned from his good friend Wu Hongqing that Mi Xian was a god king. Although the person in front of him still looked like the former young Hall Master of the Tidal Temple, Tang Sanpao, he was no longer Tang Sanpao. He was Mi Xian, the former patriarch of the dead spirit race. Most importantly, he was a god king. This was a god king expert. Although Yu Chaochuan was a 9-star war god, he was nothing in front of a god king. That was why he had maintained a humble attitude when he saw Mi Xian in the 9 Serenities battlefield. It might not be easy for Mi Xian to kill him in the 9 Serenities battlefield, but what about outside? He couldn't stay in the 9 Serenities battlefield forever. Outside the 9 Serenities battlefield, an expert like Mi Xian could turn him to dust with a snap of his fingers. Is there something you need? Mi Xian glanced at Yu Chaochuan indifferently. He put on a very haughty attitude. A mere 9-star war god was like an ant in his eyes. There was no need for him to be polite. Lord Mi Xian, a grand enforcer named Li Feng, has appeared in the Northern Profound Alliance of the 2nd Northern District. Although he's only an 8-star war god, he has the strength to instantly kill someone close to a peak 8-star war god. Yu Chaochuan said bluntly. So what? Mi Xian asked again. His tone was slightly impatient. Even a 9-star war god was nothing in his eyes, let alone an 8-star war god who was weaker than a 9-star war god. He's Mi Xian's man. Yu Chaochuan wasn't annoyed by Mi Xian's impatience. He continued patiently, Li Feng wears a black robe, a black cloak, and a bamboo hat. Ordinary people can't see his true appearance. It seems like he's intentionally hiding his appearance and identity. In addition, he's skilled in the laws of space. When Yu Chaochuan said those words, Mi Xian hadn't reacted yet. When he heard Yu Chaochuan's last sentence, his originally unconcerned expression instantly tensed up and his pupils contracted. You mean, this Li Feng might be Duan Lingtian? Mi Xian wasn't stupid. On the contrary, as the former patriarch of the dead spirit race, he was smarter than most people. Precisely. Yu Chaochuan nodded. Does that Jing know about this? Mi Xian asked. He does. Yu Chaochuan nodded again. Alliance Lord Jiying was the one who told me about this and told me to tell Lord Mi Xian. Ever since Jiying had been defeated by Mi Xian, he hadn't sought him out. Even now, half a year later, he hadn't personally come to find Mi Xian, even though he'd learned of some suspicious clues. It was clear that he wasn't very willing to see Mi Xian. He sure is arrogant. I can't believe he didn't come to tell me about this himself. Mi Xian's eyes flashed coldly. He snorted and left with a whoosh, vanishing from Yu Chaochuan's sight in the blink of an eye. However, the direction Mi Xian was heading in surprised Yu Chaochuan. That doesn't seem to be the direction of the north? The Brahma Alliance was located in the center of the Nine Serenities battlefield, so the north was naturally to the north of the Brahma Alliance. However, Mi Xian was heading in the southeast direction. Yu Chaochuan was momentarily stunned. Only then did Yu Chaochuan remember that he'd come from that direction as well. That was where the Alliance Lord of the Brahma Alliance, Jiying, cultivated. This Lord Mi Xian isn't going to cause trouble for Jiying, is he? Yu Chaochuan's heart shook. He didn't dare hesitate and immediately followed Mi Xian. When he arrived, he saw Mi Xian's figure drifting away again, heading north in the direction of the northern region. On the other side, the Alliance Lord of the Brahma Alliance, Jiying, was standing where he was. He had one hand on his shoulder that was completely sunken in. Traces of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth. Alliance Lord Jiying? Yu Chaochuan was slightly taken aback. Was this Lord Mi Xian's doing? Was it because Jiying hadn't personally told him that the Northern Profound Alliance's supreme guardian, Li Feng, might be the Duan Lingtian in the 2nd North District? Jiying snorted coldly as he glanced at Yu Chaochuan coldly. The people from the Tidal Temple are really short-tempered. Last time, Mi Xian injured me. I was the one who provoked him, so I'll admit it. This time, he came to my door and injured me for no reason. I won't let this matter rest. I'll tell my master about this and have him demand an explanation from the Tidal Temple. Jiying's expression turned even paler as he spoke. Jiying originally thought that Yu Chaochuan would apologize to him on Mi Xian's behalf and beg him not to make a big deal out of this. However, he didn't expect Yu Chaochuan to nod. Alliance leader Jiying, I support you on this matter. You're on the side of reason and not family. Look for the heavenly emperor of the Brahma heaven? Would that work? Yu Chaochuan sneered inwardly. Chapter 3573. Whenever Yu Chaochuan thought about what Wu Hongqing, the hall master of the Tidal Temple, had told him before he came to the Nine Serenities battlefield, he couldn't help but think that he had to be extremely careful when facing Lord Mi Xian. What a joke! Lord Mi Xian was a bona fide mid-level god king. Even if he temporarily occupied Tang Sanpeio's body, his celestial core power only had the basic characteristics of divine power and had not completely transformed into divine power. He only had the physical attack of a 9-star god of war. However, once he left the Nine Serenities battlefield, his soul attack would be at the level of a divine king. Moreover, it was the kind of soul attack that a middle divine king who specialized in soul attacks used. Even an ordinary lower divine king would find it hard to block it. Although the heavenly emperor of the Jifan celestial sect had ascended to godhood, he might not even be a god king. Would he dare to provoke Mi Xian? What a joke! For this reason, Yu Chaochuan only took Jiying's threat as a joke. Right now, Jiying only thought that Yu Chaochuan was deliberately being sarcastic. She was so angry that her expression changed slightly. I will immediately send someone out of the Nine Serenities battlefield to report this matter to my master. Do as you wish. Yu Chaochuan shrugged and turned to leave. He couldn't help but roll his eyes as he turned around. Did this Jiying really think that she and her master were important? In front of Lord Mi Xian, even his master would have to bow. I hope Lord Mi Xian will be able to gain something from his trip to the Northern Profound Alliance in the 2nd Northern District. If the Supreme Guardian of the Northern Profound Alliance is really Duan Ling Tian, I'll be able to leave the 9 Serenities battlefield and report back to my sect. The 9th Serenity battlefield was considered a decent training ground for 9-star gods of war. Many 9-star gods of war had also reached the threshold of becoming gods in this place. However, this was only true for ordinary 9-star gods of war. Yu Chaochuan was no ordinary 9-star god of war. He didn't even remember how long he had stayed in the 9 Serenities battlefield. Because he had stayed here for so long, he couldn't help but want to leave as soon as possible. Now, to Yu Chaochuan, the 9 Serenities battlefield was not a path to godhood, but an obstacle to godhood. If it was not for his old friend Wu Hongqing, the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple, looking for him, he would not have entered the 9 Serenities battlefield. After Yu Chaochuan left, Ji Ying's expression naturally became even uglier. Leave the 9 Serenities battlefield and inform my master about this. Tell him to seek an explanation from the Tidal Temple's Hall Master. Actually, in the beginning, Jing indeed wanted to scare Yu Chaochuan, but Yu Chaochuan's attitude made him even angrier, to the extent that he really sent a message to leave the 9 Serenities battlefield and inform Ji Fantian and Heavenly Emperor Ji Yu of this matter. Although Ji Ying and his master were separated by the 9 Serenities battlefield and the Devata realm, they still had a special connection. It was also because of this that he found out about Wulong's death not long after. Although he had Wulong's soul orb in his storage ring, it would still take some time to discover it. Mi Xian? It did not take long for Ji Yu, the Heavenly Emperor of the Ji Fantian, to receive news from the 9 Serenities battlefield. Initially, he thought his first true disciple, who was also his adopted son, had brought him good news about the Duan Ling Tian. Ji Yu knew very well what kind of person his disciple was. He was capable of handling most matters on his own. Since Ji Yu had informed him of this matter, it was clear Ji Yu was very important to him. Is on the verge of becoming a god. If I don't let this matter rest, his path to becoming a god will be obstructed. Ji Yu, the Heavenly Emperor of the Ji Fantian, left the Ji Fantian's Heaven and Earth Mansion. He went to the Tidal Temple's branch in the Ji Fantian and was teleported to the Tidal Temple's main hall. With Ji Yu's status, he could go to the independent realm where the main hall of the Tidal Temple was located to meet Wu Hongqing, the Palace Master of the Tidal Temple. Hall Master Wu, you must give me an explanation for this matter. Ji Yu suppressed his anger and told Wu Hongqing everything that had happened. That Mi Xian from the Tidal Temple is too presumptuous. He hit my disciple just because he wanted to. Is he not putting me, Ji Yu, in his eyes? Ji Yu suppressed his anger in front of Wu Hongqing because although he had become a god a long time ago, he was only a higher god and had yet to break through to the God King stage. Wu Hongqing, on the other hand, was already a lesser God King. If they fought, Ji Yu would not be a match for Wu Hongqing. Naturally, Wu Hongqing did not dare to kill Ji Yu since Ji Yu had connections in the realms of gods. Even as the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple, he had to be wary of Ji Yu. Ji Yu were old friends. Wu Hongqing smiled faintly in the face of Ji Yu's accusation. Since we're old friends, I'll send Mi Xian to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven after he comes out. The Tidal Temple won't interfere no matter what you do to him. What do you think? Ji Yu had thought about many things on his way here. He was certain a 9-star god of war like Mi Xian had a high status in the eyes of Wu Hongqing, the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple. Even if he came here to seek justice, he would most likely return empty-handed. The only reason he came here was to seek justice for his disciple, Ji Ying. However, he did not expect Wu Hongqing, the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple, would not only not protect Mi Xian, but he would even send Mi Xian to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven. Hall Master Wu, what do you mean by that? Ji Yu frowned. He had lived for many years. Naturally, he could tell something was amiss. However, he could not figure out why Wu Hongqing would do this. Nothing. Wu Hongqing shook his head. Ji Yu, aren't you looking for trouble with Mi Xian? After he comes out of the 9 Serenities battlefield, I'll send him to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven for you to deal with. What? Do I have to teach you how to deal with him? As Wu Hongqing spoke, he, who had stopped shaking his head, continued shaking his head. Ji Yu snorted coldly, Hall Master Wu, although I don't know what you're trying to do, if you're trying to scare me by retreating in order to advance, I'm afraid your efforts are destined to be in vain. Since the Tidal Temple dares to send me Xian to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven, I'll teach him a lesson on your behalf. I only hope the Tidal Temple won't go back on its word. Otherwise, I'll personally take him away. As soon as Ji Yu finished speaking, he turned around and left before Wu Hongqing could say anything. Wu Hongqing was left behind with a stunned expression on his face. I'm trying to advance by retreating? Wu Hongqing felt as though he had been wronged. However, when he thought of what Ji Yu said before he left, Wu Hongqing's eyes subconsciously narrowed, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. Ji Yu, this time you're too smart for your own good. Even I don't dare to provoke me Xian. You're a greater deity. Your courage is commendable. After Ji Yu returned to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven, he sent a message to his true disciple and adopted son Jing. I've helped you with the matter you asked me to do. I've made a trip to the Tidal Temple, and the Hall Master of the Tidal Temple has personally agreed to let me Xian come to our Ji Fantian and beg for forgiveness after he leaves the 9 Serenities battlefield. He's also at my mercy. At that time, you can leave the 9 Serenities battlefield and join in the fun. Let's see how the arrogant Mi Xian cowers in front of your master. These were Ji Yu's exact words. Ji Ying's eyes lit up when he heard Ji Yu's words. At the same time, he felt relieved. Mi Xian, when you come to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven to beg for forgiveness, I'll leave the 9 Serenities battlefield for you and return to the heavenly palace of the Ji Fantian heaven to see how embarrassed you are. I hope you'll still be as arrogant as you were when you attacked me. As she muttered to herself, a cold glint flashed across Ji Ying's eyes. It was as if she was about to devour someone. Naturally, Mi Xian was unaware that Jing had sent someone to inform Ji Yu, the heavenly emperor of the Ji Fantian heaven of the Ji Fantian heaven. Even if he knew, he would not have cared. The heavenly emperor of the Ji Fantian heaven? What was that? Mi Xian was currently making his way to the north from the central region. Soon he arrived at the 2nd North District. Do you know where the Northern Profound Alliance is? If you don't, you can die now. When Mi Xian saw a figure, he stepped forward and grabbed him, his face expressionless. As for the person who was grabbed by him, he felt the terrifying power coming from his hand and thought of the threatening words he said. Immediately, his expression changed greatly, and he didn't dare to be negligent in the slightest. "Milord, I know, I can lead the way for Milord." The Northern Profound Alliance was currently a powerful force in the 2nd North District. It was second to none in the 2nd North District. For such a force, anyone who had stayed in the 2nd North District for a period of time would know where it was based. Even if they had not been there, they would have heard of it. "Let's go." Mi Xian loosened his grip on the man, who quickly led the way to the Northern Dark Alliance's base. "Milord, the Northern Dark Alliance's base is within this glacier. It's said that it's completely hollowed out. May I go now?" As he spoke, he looked at Mi Xian apprehensively. "Scram." Mi Xian waved his hand impatiently. With a flash, he appeared in front of the Northern Profound Alliance's mountain gate. As for the person leading the way, he heaved a sigh of relief and left as if he was fleeing. Mi Xian was stopped at the entrance of the Northern Dark Alliance's encampment. "Who are you? What business do you have with the Northern Profound Alliance?" A Northern Profound Alliance disciple guarding the entrance asked in a low voice as he watched Mi Xian approach. Chapter 3574. Swoosh, swoosh. Mi Xian's eyes flashed with a sharp light as soon as the Northern Profound Alliance's disciple finished speaking. Then, a short-lived beam of light shot out from his eyes and entered the disciple's glabella in the blink of an eye. In the next instant, the disciple of the North Xian Alliance, who was brimming with energy a moment ago, fell to the ground with a heavy thud, sending ice shards flying everywhere. The remaining disciples of the North Xian Alliance were shocked by what they saw. Even the North Profound Alliance's elder, who had been sitting idly by the side and hadn't looked at Mi Xian, couldn't help but look at him in shock. Such a swift and fierce soul attack was truly shocking. Even the elder of the North Xian Alliance was unable to react in time to save the disciple of the North Xian Alliance. Who are you? Why have you come to the Northern Profound Alliance and killed our disciples? The elder of the North Xian Alliance stepped forward and sent a message to his superior, one of the guardians of the North Xian Alliance, to inform him of what had happened. I'll be right there. The person who received the message was Qi Zhangyu, the sixth guardian of the North Xian Alliance. He was a handsome young man in a green robe and was playing chess with a middle-aged man. Qi Zhangyu's expression changed and the middle-aged man who was sitting opposite him was shocked. Sixth guardian, what's wrong with you? Fourth guardian, someone killed our disciples at the southern gate of the North Xian Alliance. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Zhangyu left like a gust of wind. What? The middle-aged man stood up immediately and his expression changed. Who is it? How dare he kill our disciples at the southern gate of the North Xian Alliance? In the next moment, the middle-aged man's face was filled with anger. He soared into the air and followed closely behind Qi Zhangyu. After a while, the two of them appeared at the southern gate of the North Xian Alliance. Fourth guardian, sixth guardian. The elder of the North Xian Alliance and the disciples of the North Xian Alliance bowed respectfully when they saw the two of them. At the same time, their eyes were filled with excitement. The guardians of the Northern Profound Alliance were all 7-star gods of war. Fourth protector, sixth protector. He's the one who killed the disciples of the Northern Profound Alliance. The elder of the North Profound Alliance said with a mournful expression. At this moment, Qi Zhangyu and the other two who had just rushed out saw the Northern Profound Alliance's disciple lying on the ground. He didn't have any injuries on his body, but his eyes were not only dull, but there was also a hint of black light in them. This was usually the sign of a person who had been killed by a soul attack. This person specializes in soul attacks? In the next moment, Qi Zhangyu and Zhang Xian turned their gazes to the young man standing not too far away. Very good, 2 more people have come. Seeing 2 more people appear, Mi Xian grinned and said, You guys, do any of you know where that Grand Enforcer of the Northern Profound Alliance is? Or you? Why did you kill the disciples of the Northern Profound Alliance? Qi Zhangyu looked at Mi Xian with a gloomy face and asked coldly, ignoring Mi Xian's question. How dare you kill a disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance? Don't even think about leaving today. The middle-aged man who came out with Qi Zhangyu, the fourth protector of the Northern Profound Alliance, Qiu Fu, stared at Mi Xian with a murderous look. Mi Xian responded with a cold snort and a slap. Bang! Mi Xian's slap caused a violent energy to explode in the air. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped Qiu Fu and landed on his body before he could react. In the next moment, Qiu Fu's entire body turned into a bloody mist. The bloody mist swept across the sky and slapped Qi Zhangyu's face, the elder of the Northern Profound Alliance, and the other disciples of the Northern Profound Alliance. They felt cold and stiff, and a chill rose from the soles of their feet to their heads. At this moment, they felt as though they had lost control of their bodies. All they could hear was the sound of their hearts beating faster and faster. Heavens! The fourth protector of the Northern Profound Alliance, a top 7-star god of war, was killed by this person with a slap? In the entire Northern Profound Alliance, only the Alliance leader, the Vice Alliance leader, and the mysterious Supreme Guardian had the ability to do so. Does anyone know where the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance is? Mi Xian asked again. His originally calm gaze turned sharp, as though he was about to devour someone. I know. Under Mi Xian's sharp gaze, one of the disciples of the Northern Profound Alliance felt as though he was about to suffocate. Under the immense pressure on his mind and body, he couldn't hold it in any longer and hurriedly spoke. The moment he spoke, the expressions of the 6 protectors and the elders of the Northern Profound Alliance changed. This guy is going to betray the Supreme Protector? Is he courting death? Very well. Mi Xian nodded in satisfaction as soon as the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance finished speaking. Then he raised his hand and his palm shook a few times in the air. In the next moment, bang, 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 bang. Along with the deafening sound, blood splattered everywhere. Other than the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance who said that he knew where the Supreme Protector was, the rest, including the sixth Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance, were all dead. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance who was lucky enough to survive was completely dumbfounded. When he regained his senses, his legs gave way and he collapsed on the ground, leaving behind a pool of blood. Lead the way. Mi Xian frowned slightly as he looked at the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance in disdain. Yes, my lord. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance was still trembling in fear when he heard Mi Xian's order. He stood up like a frightened bird, afraid that he would follow in the footsteps of the fourth protector and the sixth protector if he didn't listen to Mi Xian's order. This person is here to cause trouble for the Supreme Protector. He knows how powerful the Supreme Protector is, but he still came to find the Supreme Protector. Is he a 9-star god of war? The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance who was leading the way was shocked when he thought of this. He believed that at this moment, not just the 2nd North District, but the entire northern part of the 9th Serenity Battlefield, or even more than half of the 9th Serenity Battlefield, knew how powerful the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance was. Under such circumstances, the person who dared to find trouble with the Supreme Protector was either a brainless fool or a fearless person. This person didn't seem to be the former, but the latter. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance led Mi Xian all the way into the Northern Profound Alliance's base. Along the way, there were people who wanted to stop them. However, when they heard the voice transmission from the Northern Profound Alliance's disciple, they stopped in their tracks and watched them leave. Some of them even went to inform the Alliance leader and Vice-Alliance leader of the Northern Profound Alliance. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance who was leading the way told everyone the same thing. The person behind me just killed the 4th Protector and the 6th Protector. He's here to cause trouble for the Supreme Protector. He's suspected to be a 9-star god of war. After hearing this short sentence, no one dared to step forward. You're kind. You even know how to warn them. Mi Xian sneered as he followed behind the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance. Although the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance had been transmitting his voice, Mi Xian was not blind. Naturally, he could see that many people wanted to step forward. However, after a while, they looked at him suspiciously and didn't dare to step forward. No one would believe that the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance who was leading the way didn't send a warning to those people. My lord. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance smiled bitterly. There's no need to involve small fries like us in a fight between big shots like you. It's not easy for us to reach our current cultivation base. Don't worry. As long as they don't provoke me, I won't touch them. Mi Xian said calmly, as long as the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance isn't the person I'm looking for. I won't make things difficult for him. Thank you for your kindness, Senior. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance thanked Mi Xian profusely. Although Duan Lingtian was the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance, not many people dared to approach the place where he cultivated. However, there were still many people who knew where he cultivated. In the Northern Profound Alliance, as long as they weren't particularly uninformed, almost everyone knew where Duan Lingtian cultivated. Of course, they didn't know that the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance was Duan Lingtian. They only thought that the Supreme Protector of the Northern Profound Alliance was Li Feng, one of the strongest 8-star gods of war. My lord, it's right in front. The disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance led Mi Xian to the place where Duan Lingtian cultivated and pointed at the building in front of them. Mi Xian glanced at the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, the disciple of the Northern Profound Alliance hurriedly fled. Mi Xian's consciousness swept out in an instant, enveloping the surrounding area. In order to prevent his target from escaping, he didn't even spare the underground. Since Mi Xian had only caused a commotion outside the mountain gate and not within the Northern Profound Alliance's base, Duan Lingtian didn't notice Mi Xian's arrival even though he wasn't concentrating on his cultivation. He only reacted when Mi Xian's divine sense enveloped the area. "Who's there?" The sudden surge of divine sense gave Duan Lingtian a sense of déjà vu, but he couldn't recall where he had sensed this divine sense before. In the next instant, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed. This was because the other party's divine sense had also enveloped him. It was as though he had nowhere to hide. At the same time, an indifferent voice came from outside. "Should I call you Li Feng or Duan Lingtian?" When Duan Lingtian heard the voice, he felt that it was even more familiar. After thinking for a while, he recalled someone. Tang Sanpao? When Duan Lingtian walked out of his cultivation place and stepped into the air, he was greeted by a familiar voice. "It's him!" With just a glance, Duan Lingtian recognized the person hovering in the air. It was none other than Tang Sanpao, the young master of the Tidal Temple, whom he had met during the Battle of Geniuses in the Devata realms. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.